Thank you all for your patience. I will give the floor again to Zeynep.
So I'll be on my best behavior.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything seditious or upset any of the gods or goddesses up there. So just to sum up, so the ethnographic state, this is the period of consolidation of ethnographic state. As I said, numerically and ethnographically, state very closely follows these communities, but it's not limited to the state. So this kind of ethnographic observation becomes almost the given end of any kind of interaction these communities were having with outsiders. So any kind of problem they experience with their neighbors or their family members, as in the case of, for example, Mehmet Tevfik Baba, who experienced a problem with his father-in-law, his father-in-law, who didn't approve his conversion to Bektaşism, his initiation into Bektaşism, turned this question, in a way, encouraged the muhtars to start this kind of ethnographic account of what he was doing with all these villagers and others. So in conclusion, what I'm proposing is rethinking the Hamidian era, Alevi Bektashi communities' experiences bottom up. So rather than talking about mostly state surveillance, talking about how oppressed these communities were or how persecuted these communities were in this period, let's start talking about the genuine curiosity these communities had about themselves, about their beliefs, their community relations, and in their relation to different kind of Alevi Bektashi tradition. This kind of curiosity, obviously informed by, one of the lines for this curiosity is what happened in 1826, this break point that basically shattered their geography, their understanding, their networks, but it wasn't limited to that. Obviously, this was a reform period that meant new ideas about their relation to the political center, but also the arrival of missionaries. I cannot emphasize how important this was for these rural communities who did not necessarily have first-person contact with these communities, but their Christian neighbors had. And through interactions with their Christian communities, some of these ideas trickled down to these communities with which they engaged in the way they preferred to do so. So actually this photo, if you can see, comes from this Araboğlu Tekke village. Currently, this photo was taken maybe 10 years ago by a journalist, a researcher journalist, who actually, if you can see the Last Supper on the right-hand side, in this village where they, still hold their ayini cem in this gathering house, right? So, and you see all these kind of different symbolisms very much preserved within their tradition and within their physical space. So let's start talking about these kind of hybrid forms that emerge out of this curiosity. So this was kind of a new market for shopping for religious ideas about religions, forms of religions, practicing religion. So this period was vibrant in that respect. So another thing that I would like to draw attention to is, when we talk about this period as a persecution, it's very unlikely to think of this period also a period of expansion for these communities. What these stories tell us is this period was quite interesting. There was also a period of expansion. So this was a period that they proselytized. They, especially these kind of individuating groups that kind of were challenging the more mainstream ways of being Kızılbaş or Alevi in this period. So their numbers might be increasing, and this was also a concern for the Ottoman state that basically made more emphasis ethnographically surveilling these communities. And I also would like to underline here, because still when we were talking about rural communities, especially in the scholarship, we more or less talk about continuity and their sometimes ignorance, especially if it is written by a scholar coming, from a different context. Whereas these stories actually shows how integrated these rural communities to the political, cultural, social changes taking place in the Ottoman Empire, in the remotest corners of the empire, like this Sivas, in the mid, this small kind of a mountain village in the heartland of Anatolia. So I would like to end here. I hope I made sense, and we'll have maybe chance to further talk about these ideas after Brett. The floor is finally yours.
Well, thank you very much, Zeynep, for this passionate and, and enlightening expose, especially all these ideas about hybrid processes, and thank you for bringing up this issue, this myth of promiscuity. So now I give the floor to Mr. Brett Wilson, who will talk about the Bektashis in the Turkish Republic era. Thank you very much, Brett.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here in this inspiring place with such a great panel to speak with, and I want to thank the organizers for having me here. I've also heard that no one is hungry, so that I can speak through the lunch hour, and that it will be not a problem here in Kavala. So today I want to talk a little bit about the actual buildings and the actual possessions that Sufi communities, Bektashi communities, Alevi communities had, and what happened to them with the emergence of the nation state. And I've spent the last week in Greece and have developed a highly superficial knowledge of the situation in Greece, which seems to me to have a lot of similarities. Based upon what Konstantinos presented yesterday and also what I've read from Yorgos Mavromatis, I see some interesting similarities about how politics, about how property laws, how the treatment of religious communities appears very similar. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about this later and to correct all of my misperceptions. So I want to talk about this context. What does it mean for Bektashi lodges to become part of Turkish national culture or Turkish heritage? Because we see this really interesting characteristic in the 1920s and 30s in which Sufism is banned. There's a lot of persecution of Alevis and Bektashis in various ways, but at the same time, nationalist thought is incorporating their ideas, their literature, their art into the repertoire of Turkish national culture. And so how has this affected the actual preservation of the buildings that communities had for many centuries? The big elephant in the room is that in 1925, the Republic of Turkey abolishes organized Sufism and confiscates all the properties, all the vakıf of all Sufi orders, including the Bektashi. And we have some different figures here, which are tentative, but something like 773 tekkes are closed and around 905 turbes. This is also noticed by the New York Times, as you see here. Then we have this process of museumization, right? So one idea of what can we do with these properties is like in many places in the world, also in Greece, you take a property like this and you make it into a museum, right? But that, of course, changes a lot of things about how the property functions, what it does, and so forth. One important aspect of this are the objects and the books that these properties contain. So if you would imagine that a place like Hacı Bektaş or Mevlana, they have massive libraries. They have thousands of objects, artistic objects, ritual objects, quite amazing things, quite beautiful things. And these are all part of the process. They are all confiscated. Objects with artistic and historical value were removed from the lodges and taken to different museums across the country, primarily in the case of Hacı Bektaş to Ankara, but the lodges of Istanbul and other places were taken to regional depots, libraries, regional museums. And I'll say more about this later, but in the case of the main tekke, the chief tekke, they go to Ankara. The books as well. So we can see some of the objects here of historical and artistic value that disappear from the tekkes. We have here Teslim Tasha, which is now, as you see, it's in a Mevlevi museum. We can see objects like on the left, again, a Husseini Taç, which is also in Galata, Mevlevihane. The middle object is in the Metropolitan Museum in New York City. And the The Keshkul on the right side is also in the Galata Mevlevi Hanesi. Then we have, for example, the famous Kazan, which is on the left, which is back at Haji Bektash. We have various objects which have gone into private collections, which you see on the right side. The long hand is a back scratcher, which is an interesting common Sufi object. And as you see, the bottom of these objects all has a Husseini tash, the 12-pleated Bektashi headgear at the edge. We see also other objects like these taken from Haji Bektash to other museums. So these ended up in the museum in Konya. So there's this interesting kind of confiscation process, but also leads to Bektashi objects being in many different types of places. And around 10,000 objects in total are collected around the country. The Ankara Museum receives about half of them. And of the 4,600 objects in Ankara, about 1/5 of them come from Haji Bektash complex alone in central Anatolia. And as you can imagine, most of these objects were never exhibited. They simply were stored in depots. And oftentimes, the museums didn't really know what to do with them. For primarily, Turkish museums were trained to take care of objects from antiquity. And all of a sudden, they are inundated with thousands of objects from Sufi tekkes that were just yesterday open and were being used. And they didn't quite know how to deal with a lot of these objects. Now, in terms of confiscation process, I tend to see museumization as one that's somewhat hostile to Sufi communities, right? You take their things, you put them in a museum out of their natural context, and they're kind of, in a way, they're kind of dead, right? They're historical objects. They're objects of culture. They're not for practicing religion anymore. And they look awkward also to people who go and see them there. I want to talk in the second half here about museumization in a bit of a different light, which is museumization as preservation. Okay, so this is another part of the story. And in the case of, for example, the Mevlevi Lodge, Chief Lodge in Konya, we see that in 1926, immediately after the closure of the tekkes, it's made into a museum. And it experiences a very different kind of museumization than Haji Bektash. It preserves all of its objects in the original place, whereas Haji Bektash lost everything, basically. And this was seen by people who were sympathetic to Mevlevi Sufis and to preservation of the site as being the proper way to do it. Keep it there. Keep it as an entity, a whole entity. Haji Bektash, as I said before, was treated very differently. In the case of Konya, the building is very well preserved. It's renovated at that time. The roofs are all fixed, and so on and so forth. Everything is in good condition. Haji Bektash has a very different trajectory. So in 1925, the site is made into an agricultural school, right? And it's a very awkward mix to make a pilgrimage site and a large Sufi tekke into a kind of school. And what it means is that some of the buildings are used and some of them aren't used, and many of them fall into very, very bad condition very quickly. So we can see pictures from the architect, a very famous Turkish architect taken in 1940, that the buildings are really quite dilapidated. There's grass growing on the roofs. The walls are falling down. You can see that in place of the lead coverings, which as you see here at the Imaret, all the buildings are covered in lead, which is the Ottoman way of doing it. Here we have just simple terracotta tiles put on top, which is just a stopgap measure to prevent something immediately from happening, but it's definitely less than ideal. You have kind of a whole garden growing on top of the roof here. The roots, of course, go into the building and they destroy it rather quickly. Some of the buildings are completely lost by 1940. When this architect was there and he was planning to do hopefully to do a renovation. First, they were just taking kind of sketches and organizing what should be rebuilt someday if they get the money to or the political will to do it. But at this point, you can see some of the structures have no roofs or very, very bad condition. The interior walls are completely moist. The decorations, and again, you see here's the roof of the turbe of Haji Bektash. completely covered in these tiles, which make it look like almost like a village house, right? This is not the proper maintenance for a major Ottoman site. But Hacı Bektaş, in a sense, is saved by, again, museumization. And oops, my thing. This is one of the entrances to the Kırklar Meydanı. And in 1965, the site is made into a museum. And at the first day, the opening of the museum and the opening of the türbe, 15,000 people show up to visit the museum. I think it's the best day in the history of Turkish museums ever, that 15,000 people arrived to see the site. And of course, that was because it was also a site of religious significance. People came to visit Hacı Bektaş. This also meant that Hacı Bektaş was able to regain the vast majority of its objects from Ankara. In fact, this list here, which I was able to find in the archives, and it's been worked on by some others as well, it actually lists more objects than were taken originally. So I don't know how that's possible, but they found some new objects along the way. And it's very detailed. Every kind of ritual object, fabric, chandeliers, candelabras, all kinds of amazing things come back to the complex in 1965. And as it's a national museum, it remains well maintained until this very day. Of course, this wasn't the case for most Bektashi lodges, and I'm going to talk about some other examples in a minute here. Another example, which was mentioned earlier by Gülay, was the Seyit Gazi complex near Eskişehir. And this was actually the largest pilgrimage center of Western Anatolia of its time. As you can see, it has the appearance of a kind of castle on a hill above a town. It's quite imposing, and it's actually in some ways bigger than Hacı Bektaş. It became a Bektashi site either in the 17th or 18th centuries. I've seen different accounts of that. But by the early 20th century, it was also becoming quite damaged and quite, oops. Just one moment. Can we still see? Okay, we're back. So in the earliest 20th century, it was falling under bad condition. You can see the interiors are really falling apart there. Actually, connected to Greece also, this property was damaged badly by the Greek-Turkish War. Actually, this property was bombarded by the Greek army in either 1919 or 1920. And actually, the family of the sheikh were injured in this attack, and the sheikh ended up being a prisoner for a couple of years. The roofs were damaged. As you see here, the walls are not in good condition. They're not covered with lead as they should be, as they originally were. And the Turkish Republic decided to put a military barracks there after 1925. I don't know exactly which year it began. And the property fell into disuse. It was saved again by the place of Bektaşis in Turkish national thought, and that was in the 1950s when the state decided to reopen the tombs of the so-called Great Turks. These were Anatolian Turkish saints. Seyit Batal Gazi was one of the ones that was reopened. This led to a renovation of the property, and today it's in quite good condition, although its Bektashi identity has been quite, surpassed, I would say, by the general, say, Sunni visitation culture. It's visited by everyone, let's say. It's become more of an ecumenical national site. But most Bektashi lodges did not fare well during the Republic. Most of them were not well taken care of. And one interesting example would be, for example, the one at Şehitlik Tekesi, or Nafi Baba, as it's called by some. And this was a lodge that was built on the hill above Rumelihisar. And also was joined by Robert College, the American Missionary College that was founded there, in which the lodge actually welcomed to the area. The lodge actually sold the college land and so forth. And the sons and children of the sheikh attended the college. And one relative of the family became the first Turkish rector of Robert College, Hüseyin Bektaş. And what's interesting is that Hüseyin Bektaş also decided to destroy the building that was there, destroy the remaining tekke building, which left only the graveyard and the türbe, which is a pattern that we see in many places, that usually when there's a large wooden or non-imperial complex that is not taken care of or that loses some of its other functions, then the türbe is one of the only things that is usually remains. So I just went to Durbalı Sultan nearby Farsala, and there again you see that the agricultural buildings, the residential buildings, everything else has fallen into complete ruin, but the türbe is well preserved. Okay, similar thing happens here. The lodge is completely gone, becomes property of the college, which then becomes later on Boğaziçi University. And a few years ago, it was decided by the Turkish government to rebuild this tekke according to its original structure, more or less. They actually didn't have many pictures of it. There were only a couple of pictures. But they did it. And there was a debate about making it a center for Byzantine studies, which caused a large controversy in the Turkish media, after which it was decided that it would be better to make it a Sufi studies center, which it remains today. So in this case, the tekke is, say, reincarnated as a kind of academic institution after this interesting history in which a college and a university comes, a member of the family, a descendant actually decides to eliminate it, and then it somehow comes back. There are many examples like this. Gülay also mentioned the Çamlıca Tahir Baba tekke. There is left only the graves, nothing else, and I think it has zero chance of ever being reconstructed as this was. And there are, of course, dozens and perhaps even hundreds of examples like this throughout Turkey. So, in conclusion, I think there's not one explanation for why Bektashi tekkes have been well preserved or not well preserved. On the one hand, you have many that were, say, saved by their location in the Turkish national discourse and thought about what Bektashis were within Turkish culture. On the other hand, you have many that were lost because, like many tekkes we see also here in Greece, they lost their revenues from agriculture or from a vakf from the state. They were not able to keep up the properties, and eventually the people move out and the properties are destroyed. So I think I'll just leave it at that, and I look forward to discussing with you more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brett. These concepts of museization and of reincarnation of the tekkes are really fascinating. So thank you very much again. So the floor is open for questions. Όποιος θέλει να κάνει κάποια ερώτηση, παρακαλώ σηκώνει το χέρι του.
Sorry for raising another question today. I was wondering whether were any examples of solidarity among the Sufi orders when one order was persecuted by the state, whether the other order expressed some sorrow about it, or they just saw it as an opportunity to claim property and to gain more influence in society. This would be one question. And the second question about the spaces. From my limited knowledge, I do know that in Islam it is not allowed to dig out, remove a body from a grave. So what happened with the relics, with the bones in these places? They were just abandoned there or taken out and thrown away somewhere? Thank you.
First question
You
is
are going to answer or?
okay, sure. Okay, sure.
Okay. My question refers to Brett Oja. First of all, to thank the organizing committee and Vangelis personally for organizing this STEM event in a rural town. We don't have many opportunities. Actually, I'm living near Kavala, a place, let's say 10 kilometers from here. And at the present, we are hosting a committee from Konya municipality about the restoration of some monuments, religious monuments. 1 month ago, at the end of September, there was a similar committee from the Kayseri Büyükşehir municipality, metropolitan municipality. My question to Brent is, and it was really very strange for us, I mean, very pro-Islamist mayors in a very, let's say, conservative municipalities to have so much interest in restoration of different religious, let's say, monuments. Having the comparison in the Republican era, the strong Kemalist, let's say, secular attitude, can you see any difference in the protection of Alevi and Bektashi monuments in the last 20 years from the AKP government, or let's say from the religious point of view?
Should we maybe answer these ones and then go? Thank you very much, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. To the first question. Well, after 1826, the Sufi sheikhs were asked by the state about their, let's say, opinion about the Bektashis, and they avoided certain direct answer. And they just said, okay, we don't know about their states, so we don't want to get involved. So that was basically the, let's say, official statement of the leaders of Sufi orders immediately after 1826. But in the direct interaction, we know some examples where they were supported by other Sufi orders, but generally speaking, I mean, of course, it has changed over the period of time, but there were some solidarities, but rather on a direct interaction and less on a, let's say, performative or public, yeah. But I think Zainab was also.
Very shortly, mine were not, I mean, the two were not Sufi orders. They were basically local Christian Kızılbaş communities, particularly in the case of Prots, who were, you know, seen again very on pejorative terms by the surrounding Kızılbaş communities. Actually, it's claimed that one of the first informants about these communities that basically brought them to the attention of the state was the other Kızılbaş communities, because they were very bothered by the idea of, for example, private property completely, you know, demolished among them. So these kind of radical ideas were not very much appreciated by them, seeing as, you know, possibly dangerous consequences for the other ones as well, seditious ideas. So in that case, you don't really see the solidarity, but to the, you know, completely the opposite. They, you know, share very similar prejudices. They, for example, even statements like, you know, about their promiscuous behavior and things like that. So.
Just a small note. I think it's the tombstones that are destroyed, not the bones. They didn't touch the bones. But the tombstones were destroyed in most of the cemeteries. The same goes for the Janissaries, for example. We have very few tombstones left from the Janissaries. That I'm not sure, no, yeah. Yeah, maybe.
In many places, they did. So
They did,
Gülay is right that what's interesting, if you go around different mosques and tekkes in Istanbul, you'll see that they have the headstones of people from different Sufi orders.
Yeah.
They're very mixed. So there was a kind of, there was a realization that there was modernization happening. They were building roads all across the country. And what they did was they simply took historical objects and put them all together in one place, right? In a quite an incoherent way. As far as the actual bones, I've never really seen a report about that, but I'm guessing that in many places they simply built over it. I mean, it's definitely the case that in many places roads were built over them. And we know of several tekkes that were on the Bosphorus, for example, where they just built the road and the tekke is gone.
Maybe as an excuse the fact that they were not Orthodox Sunni. So they were
No,
Benedicts,
everyone, yes. No ideology there, I think. Just general hatred of history. Just kidding. Yes. And then there was a question about the attitude towards restoration. I mean, the last 22 years has been a kind of extravaganza of renovation across Turkey. I mean, they've renovated everything. Sometimes they've done it 2-3 times to the same place. And I think that has to do more with the kind of politics of construction and business contacts. But also, of course, they're right that in many places needed a lot of attention. And many of them they did well. Some of them they did not so well. But it's been an incredible amount of activity. Now, as far as the particularly Bektashi sites, if we were to say Hacı Bektaş, I think our friends at Hacı Bektaş might know better in the back about the particularities of this. I really don't know what's happened in the last couple of decades there. Yeah.
Bear in mind that there's the instrumentalization of heritage for tourism that has affected a lot the approach towards the monuments in Turkey altogether. Byzantine ancient, all these ceaseless efforts to inscribe sites in Turkey to UNESCO, but they're not ready. None of the UNESCO sites described by Turkey in the last 10 years has had the approval by ECOMOS. Just political pressure to create a number of sites that are well known or so it's important that this sort on the one side they feel more comfortable and on the second side that it's tourism, let's make it an attraction and people will come, even Greeks will come to all the Greek churches, Bektaşis will come back to all Alevilik will come back and it will become a tourist attraction. There's not much spirituality.
Thank you very much.
Well, I would like to thank my colleagues for all these fascinating presentations. This way? Does it? Okay, sorry. Well, anyhow, thank you very much to all of you for the fascinating presentations. And about the discussion that happened just now about whether the bones were also excavated, I know from some cases in Sarajevo that they did, not only, you know, when they were roads constructions, and so these graves were in the way, and they did not only move the tombstones, but they also excavated actually the bones. And there are stories after this, and very carefully actually they did that, and some Sufis were involved in the process, but there are stories that these Evliya didn't take very well to that. So, you know, they there were some acts, some negative things that happened after that, and so on. So, so one shouldn't take these things lightly, I think. My question was to Gülay. I really enjoyed your paper because I'm very interested in the subject and about the Bektashi Janissary nexus. And I was wondering whether you came about some connections with the Delila, with the Bektashi Delila connection. My pronunciation will be bad, but the Delhi. Delila, Deli.
No, that I didn't. Okay. No, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, because something I investigated and I think there is some overlap. Well, thank you then. Sorry.
No, with Deliler, I didn't make any research on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, just in case because it's related. I think Suleiman.
Hello? Okay. Sorry, shortly, I have only two questions. One is about 1925 that the sir explained it about taking the properties onto nationalizing part. Do we have any kind of list of the libraries or documents, archives that was existing there, or the junks or the writings that was taken by the state? This is the first one. And the second one, about the Hamidian time. I want shortly, was for Bektashi as good that period of Hamidian time or not? Yes or no? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Since it's a yes/no question, it's a no.
So many, these teches had many books and many registers, so yes, there's a lot of material. Some of it's in the Ottoman archives, some of it's been published, so yeah, there's quite a bit.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? So I'll ask one to Jem. You explained about this oscillation between conformism, non-conformism. Did that have any impact on the religious practice, on the ceremonial, or not? And if there was, can you give us just one example? Thank you very much.
Yeah, many thanks for this really important question. Of course, it's different for us to reconstruct the actual liturgical practices. We only can rely on the Erkannames, and there are attempts during the Armenian period where let's call them conformist Bektashis try to rewrite the Erkanname and to let's say implement a Sunnah or Sharia compliant Erkanname, but it wasn't finished. So there were attempts at in this regard to also have the ritual practices in accordance with Sunni interpretations of Islam. But at least I don't know whether or not they were implemented.
Thank you very much.
Can I say something? Jem has just published his first book, right? First words, and it's available in Turkish and German.
Yeah.
It's really highly recommended, especially in response to your question,
Okay.
because I learned a lot about dolls from his book. So
Thank you very much. That's great. Well, thank you all for this very, very interesting, inspiring panel. And we can go to the next panel now. Thank you all of you. Thank you.
Please take seats for our third panel is starting. We'll start with Sarah Kuhn.
Stimmt? Richtig. Ja, richtig. Ganz richtig.
And her title for today is Albanian and North Macedonian Bektaşism in the post-1990s. I'm really looking forward to this talk and learning more about this period that I have very little information.
Slide. Sorry, yeah, the slide moved by itself. Sorry. Yeah. Good afternoon, almost. I join my colleagues to thank Zeynep, Evangelos, and Yorgos very much for organizing this fantastic conference at such a magical place. Talking about Bektaşism in Albania, Kosovo, and North Macedonia is a huge undertaking. And in this presentation, I would like to zoom in, that is, first briefly focus on the Bektaşis' world headquarters in Tirana, and then to zoom out and take a cursory look at some teachers in Albania, Kosovo, and North Macedonia. And in doing so, I draw on ethnographic fieldwork conducted in Albania, North Macedonia, and the Kosovo from 2011 to 2013, and in the summer of 2019. I apologize in advance, I will take more than 20 minutes, but in exchange I will show a lot of images. And I hope you will bear with me. What we see here are the world headquarters, or the Krigishat in Tirana. It's a rectangular concrete building which houses, thank you, the Sufi Lodge, or Teche, which includes the main Bektashi ritual hall, or Meydan, and it's flanked by, on either side, on one side by a guest house, and on the other by the tombs of the turbas of the charismatic Bektashi authorities. And this photograph was taken on an important Bektashi holiday, Sultan Nevruz, on the 22nd of March, which is a public holiday in Albania since 1996 to commemorate the New Year and the birthday of Imam Ali. And on this day, crowds of visitors from all over Albania and from abroad come to pay their respects. And these are days of intense diplomatic activity of the Dede Baba Haji Edmond Brahimaj, the world leader of the Albanian Bektashi since 2011, and he receives dignitaries, foreign diplomats, and religious and political leaders from around the world. While access to the Meydan is reserved for the initiated members, the room where important outside visitors are officially received offers some insight into crucial cornerstones of the Bektashi, Albanian Bektashi strategic positioning. The room is dominated by 4 large, previously unpublished oil paintings that express fundamental ideas of Bektashism and signal post and present political so-called alliances. I discussed these in a paper that will hopefully be published later this year in an edited volume entitled Beyond Kavala, which is published by Brill. So upon entering, the visitor's eye is immediately drawn to a large oil painting. So some more visitors. That depicts the 5 members of the Prophet Muhammad's household, the Ehli Bayt, and it was painted by one Ahmed Sultan and is dated to 1711. Devotion to the Ehli Bayt, and especially to Ali, the first Shia Imam, as well as upholding the rights of the Holy Family to the religious and political leadership of the Muslim community, is therefore central to the Bektashi and Shia creeds. The prominent positioning of the painting brings to mind the pilgrimages of the Dede Baba. I'll show you in greater detail. Affectionately known, the Dede Baba is affectionately known as Baba Mondi, 2 holy Shia sites in Iraq. And the first official visit to these holy sites in the post-communist era took place in 2011. just after Baba Mondi's election to the post, and followed by a second visit in 2014 and a third in 2019 to, quote, drink from the abundant sources of the Ehli Beit, or of Ehli Beit, unquote, and this reference was published in Urtesia, the journal of the Albanian Bektashi. These visits not only indicate a rapprochement between the Albanian Bektashis and Shia clerical authorities in Iraq, but also reflect the identification of the Albanian Bektashi community with Shia teachings. And as Baba Mondi stated in a 2019 interview, the Albanian Bektashi identify with the Alevi, of course, but he also associates the Albanian Bektashi with antinomian dervish groups characterized by extremist Shia beliefs, singling out the Kalandars, the Jalalis, and the Nimatulais. And at the same time, he underscored the importance of the teachings of the Quran and the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad for the Bektashi community. By choosing to display the Ehli Beit painting in the reception room, the Albanian Bektashi not only expressed their devotion to the Holy Family, but also their association with all those who love the Holy Family. And by facilitating the creation of a shared belief with the global Shia Muslim world and the formulation of a communal identity, the representation acquires both a socio-religious and political significance. Baba Mondi's pilgrimages to Iraq reflect the official Albanian Bektashi adherence to the Jafari Twelver school, named after the sixth Imam Jafar Sadiq. So beyond the devotion to the Holy Family, a choice of the central painting that we see here in the reception room, it also alludes to the fact that in 1921, 1 year after the establishment of an Albanian state, the independence of the Bektashi order from the Sunni community was declared. And after the headquarters of the Bektashi order, the tekke of Haji Bektash, the Pir Evi in Haji Bektash, were closed by Republican Turkey in 1925. The then head of the order, Salih Niazi Dede Baba, himself of Albanian origin, moved to Albania and established the Krigishata in Tirana. And the Albanian parliament approved the statute of the Albanian Bektashi community in 1930, and Albanian became the official language of the order. Next to the painting of the Ehli Beit, the visitor encounters another large oil painting dated 1853. And this painting depicts a narrative that has played a significant role in the Bektashi religious experience throughout the centuries and across cultural contexts, and it represents the viewer with two rival Sufi world models. On the left is the time-honored representation of the Lion Rider, which was discussed by Zeynep Aydoğan yesterday, and which we all know from Martin van Brunnesen's article on the subject. So on the left, the Lion Rider holding a snake as a whip and a pair of snakes as rein, and on the right, facing the rider, two kneeling figures mount a large rock, and the inscriptions identify the Lion Rider as Karaca Ahmet Sultan, and the central figure on the rock as Haji Bektashvili and his companion Sari Ismail Sultan. So at first glance, the painting seems to depict the ancient miracle of mastering animals, surpassed by the even more impressive feat of giving life to an inanimate medium, a wall or a rock. And Karaca Ahmet's challenge to his rival Haji Bektash to this miracle contest found its way into the Bektashi hagiographies, as we all know, and this contest was of course won by Haji Bektash's ability to move a rock. So, but on closer inspection, the painting is actually about harmony. The white dove, which is quite small there, but you will be able to make it out, the white dove on the top there in the painting is a representation of Haji Bektash, the victor of the battle, that descends on both protagonists. And this visual trope reminds the informed viewer that in order to escape persecution by the Ottoman authorities, antinomian religious groups, most of them characterized by controversial Shia beliefs, sought refuge under the Bektashi banner in the 16th and 17th centuries. The painter thus portrays two depictions of two different world models in harmony. with each other and united by Hacı Bektaş, who metonymically stands for the Bektashi community as a whole. So a third painting, dated 1844, depicts Caucasus Abdal, flanked on either side by animals, and Caucasus is known to have been an Abdal of Rum, a Kalandar dervish community that developed in Ottoman Anatolia in the second half of the 14th century. And Ahmet Yasha Ocak goes as far as to claim that it was the itinerant Abdals of Rum who, quote, gave birth to the Bektashis, unquote. That is, their teachings had a lasting influence on the Bektashis long after they had been incorporated into this mystical community. And the reason why Caucasus is depicted with animals is to be found in his poetry, and he was the first Abdal to produce important literary works. And when we discussed this painting, Babamondi also referred to Caucasus' allusion to the theory of the perfected human being, the Insan al-Kamil, an idea central to Bektashi teachings, and there's of course no better person to explore these mystical teachings than Marc Soilot, who will do so in the next panel. We come to the fourth painting in the reception room, which bears an inscription informing us that the painting represents Asim Dede, the postnishin, that is the one who sits on the animal skin of the Derga or Tekke in Ergiri, in modern-day Girocastra. Asim Baba, who was trained in the Pir Evin Hacı Bektaş, was sent to the Balkans to spread Bektashism. And that was in the late 18th century. He was the first Bektashi Baba who was also a Sayyid. And Asim Baba founded what became known as the gravel tekke, the Tekia Ezalit, in Girocastra in southern Albania. And thus, at a time when there were no other functioning teachers in Albania, the gravel tekke played a crucial role in spreading Bektashism in Albania. The gravel tekke continued to play an important role in the history of the Albanian Bektashis. One of these important roles is explained by Margaret Hasluk, who visited the teacher around 1923, and she noted that they wear a 4-ridged touch outside the usual 12-ridged Bektashi hat in commemoration of the disaster of 1826, when only by adopting such a disguise could the Bektashi escape destruction. And with this, she alludes to the concept of takir that Cem mentioned earlier in his talk. So there are a variety of visual tropes, and of course there are many more than I could mention now, that are subtly woven into these images, allowing for a multi-layered approach so that the viewer can interpret in these 4 paintings that are in the reception room for all to see at the World Headquarters in Tirana. So after a glimpse into this strategic positioning of the Albanian Bektashi, we will take a brief look at some of the Bektashi strongholds in Albania. Which are subdivided in Kruja, the Kruja region, Flora region, Elbasan, Scrapa, Korça, and Girocastra, before moving on to the Kosovo and North Macedonia. So I would like to show some impressions of Kruja, the city of the 366 saints' tombs, as it is known, and the teacher of Balem Effendi, which is located in a residential area. You really have to kind of find it in Kruja. And in this teacher, so you have apartment blocks all around, and it's kind of in a garden, like almost like in a courtyard in between. And the interior is really lovingly decorated, and I witnessed, lots of people from these residential areas visiting the teacher, and one of the ladies who visited the teacher, she was also paying her respects to the sacred tree in this compound. We move to the turbe of Mustafa Dolma. It's a turbe of the late 18th century, close to Kruja Castle. And I should also say, before its destruction during the communist period, the teacher was said itself to have had, you know, in addition to the 366 tombs, that although there are really many tombs, you know, in Kruja, there are in addition 360 holy graves that are known as the small Khorasan. And, you know, this is the location. Here we have the turbe, and inside the turbe, these are the graves, and the mihrab in the turbe, and a magnificent ceiling. I just couldn't resist. I had to include this, even though not so, you know, important really in that sense, but still there are also Bektashi shrines in trees, and here this large tree, sacred tree here, is the site of regular rituals. I mean, there, you know, you can see some wax and you know, the remnants of, you know, where the candles have been lit and so on. And we move to the turbe and the cave of Sari Saltok on Mount Kruja. Is my favorite saint of all times, one of the most important saints in the Bektashi, among the Bektashi saints. And here we are, here is the location of his cave and turbe. You descend, once you are there, you descend some stairs. There is a teche, a small one, and you have to descend further. And the reason why these people, I mean, they walk backwards up the stairs. That's why it looks like this photograph. Here is the turbe, and here's the entrance to the cave. There are tremendous amount of visitors. It's one of the most important, one of the two most important pilgrimage sites of the Bektashi in Albania, and there are lots and lots of visitors. There are a lot of big Albanians who live abroad, and whenever they come back to visit Albania, if they, you know, they always make sure to visit the turbe of Sari Saltok. There's also a sacred spring, and this is the exit. We move to Girocastra. There's the teche complex of Reshad Bardi in Seranda. It's newly opened in 2012. Here we see Reshad Bardi while the construction site in the center, while the construction site was ongoing. Here we have Baba Mondi, and this is the teche that which was opened in March 2012. And quite interestingly, while they were doing these constructions, they rediscovered footprints of the right foot of Sari Saltok, who we just heard about, and the right foot of the 16th century Barlem Sultan next to it. And this is, you know, when they were, you know, constructing the teche. Here, this is the Kurban, when they laid the foundations for the teche, and of course, you know, when also the footprints were set in place. And I mentioned this because Reshad Bardi was the previous Haji Dede of the Bektashi. After he was the first one after in the post-communist period, and that's the memorial ceremony of his passing on the 2nd of April 2012, so first year anniversary. And at the time I was doing my field work, and there were posters of Reshad Bardi in different places all over Albania. And here we have Baba Sadik Ibro, who is the head of the Saranda Teche, named after Reshad Bardi. Just briefly, Skrapa, there is the teche of Kulmak, which we'll see in a minute, and the tirbe of Abbas Aliu at the peak, on the peak of Mount Tomo, and it's one of the two main pilgrimages next to Kruja, to Sari Saltok in Albania. This is the teche, and I couldn't resist to include this picture because I happened to find it on, it's Bektashi Babas, it's a photograph from 1936, making their way up to the teche. And yeah, the tirbe of Abbas Aliu, at the peak of Mount Tomo, of course, reminds us of the famous lines of Naim Bey Frasheri, who said, Abbas Aliyu has taken over Tomor. He came to live with us, and Albania is no longer plagued, for God came to love it. And here we see the turbe of Abbas Aliyu. A tremendous amount of activity at this turbe in the summer months. This is an earlier photograph, again, so the turbe, and it comes along, you know, there are lots of kurban that take place at this time, and yeah, nowadays, not like the Bektashi Babas, you know, had to walk up quite a way. This is the way to reach the peak nowadays. We come to the Kosovo, and in Kosovo, the Bektashis are registered as a religious community under UN protectorate after the 1999 war. And unfortunately, despite their efforts, the administration of the Kosovo government has consistently blocked their attempts to obtain legal status, similar to that of the Sunnis, and within the existing legal and political framework. And I'll just show you the teche, which was newly reconstructed after, on the 7th of May, the Bektashi teche was attacked by the Serbian army. It was burnt to the ground then. The tombs of the Babas, the relics and artifacts, and the library, they were all completely destroyed. And after the war in Kosovo, the teche was then rebuilt in 2007 with the help of the government, the Kosovo government, and income from the Bektashi teche of Jakova, private funding. And here we see Baba Mumin Lama. He was my favorite Lama, Baba, not Lama, Baba. That's a Freudian slip. He was like a Lama too. And here we see the Maidan of the, you know, the reconstructed teche, of course, the reconstructed turbe, and Baba Mumin Lama passed away sadly in the 26th of January 2021. And I was incredibly sad when I heard those news. Yeah, at the time, that's a photograph of his funeral. We come to North Macedonia, and North Macedonia is a completely different, has a completely different setup because there is an ethnic divide in the Bektashi community between Albanians and the Albanian community and the Turkish community in the Bektashi community. And the Albanians, they tend to look towards the Bektashi World Center in Tirana, while the Balkan Turks, they look to the Dede Baba in Izmir. And these are these internal divisions between the or within the Albanian and Turkish communities. They are aggravated by incredibly complex legal, political, and social conditions facing the Bektashi. I'll show this on the example of the Harabati Baba Tekke. It's the largest and best preserved historical teche in the Western Balkans, and it was actively used by the Bektashi until 1945. And this complex was confiscated and nationalized by communist Yugoslavia and then turned into a hotel and leisure complex in the 1960s. And one would expect it to be returned, you know, in the early 1990s to the Bektashis. But because a legal loophole, the Macedonian state has blocked the restitution efforts of the religious community of the Bektashi with administrative obstacles. And this problem has had a fatal effect on the Bektashi there. The site has been subjected to various forms of vandalism, destruction, and religious desecration since the 1990s. And this teche is overseen by Dervish Abdul Muttalib Bekiri. He's really a saint, one has to say, because he has been holding the fort in this very, very difficult situation. I'll explain a bit more about it, and also I will be coming to the end, just to say. But it's a huge, it's an amazing complex. And these are the quarters where the Dervish Muttalib is residing. This is a photograph taken in 2011, and this is, you know, just to show it's not so much different in 2019. And yeah, this is the central turbe, which has been damaged by a fire several times, starting in 1992, and it has not yet been restored due to financial restraints. And here we see my friend Elisabeta Koneska, who is with us. She came from Skopje, and Elisabeta is the actual specialist on the situation of the Bektashis in Macedonia. We'll talk about this with her later in greater detail. Yeah, just to say, since the situation was bad since the early 1990s, but in August 2002, a part of the site and the building were illegally occupied by radical Sunni Wahhabi groups, and they used armed force. And this partial takeover of the Harabati Tekke, of the complex, took place with the apparent support of the Islamic religious community of Macedonia, with the Wahhabis, who subsequently declared themselves the official representatives on the site, and they since then have been using various structures on the site as for their activities. And for instance, they converted what we see here, the Kubeli Meydan, into converted, of course in inverted commas, into a mosque, a particularly symbolic act of power demonstration and humiliation of the Bektashi. They installed loudspeaker system for the public call to prayer, and it's it's aggressively loud actually when you are there. Here we see the entrance to the, what has been converted into a mosque. And so with the help of the, I will maybe go back to the mosque to show you what the Meydan looked like, because they also installed a concrete mihrab into the Meydan. And so with the help of the Bektashi World Center in Tirana, the Macedonian Bektashi community sued the Macedonian government for failing to legally return the property to the Bektashi community in accordance with the law on restitution. However, the state continued to allow the Wahhabi actors in the Harabati Tekke to operate freely, and as a result, the area has become a lawless zone, which has emboldened the Sunni occupiers, who are vastly superior in numbers, in their hostile and arbitrary actions against the Bektashi. And the Islamic community also does not approve of Bektashi activities on the site, such as burial of members of the order. And it's just one of many things, but it's a very essential one. And there's also, because of the lack of funds, the historical buildings, they are amazing, really. And the shrines in the Bektashi-controlled area, they are crumbling, and it's very difficult for them to do any restoration works. And just very, very briefly, we move on to Kičevo, just to show you this this site, the Hardababa Tekke in Kičevo, during construction. Here we have Eyüp Rakibi Baba in the Meydan, and I'm showing this because this community is more closely associated with the Turkish Bektashi community under Haider Ercan Dede Baba, then not close with Tirana. Here we see the Meydan of this community, and here we see kind of the back of this turbe, of the turbe and the teche and tekke. And close to that, there is, not too far from Kičevo, there is a shared sacred site that Elisabeta Koneska has been doing really important documentary about, because we talked yesterday, or we heard about shared sacred sites. And she has also been doing important field work on another completely independent community in Kanatlatz. It's their Turkish-speaking community. They have no affiliation with either Izmir or Tirana, and hers is the most important research on that. And there are fantastic documentaries on these subjects. And just to finish, just half a second for this. an important site, which a shared site, which I would like to mention because it falls within, you know, this region, and it's a major pilgrimage site also for the Bektashis, is the monastery of Sveti Naum on the shores of Lake Ohrid. It's located in North Macedonia, and because pilgrims from the Bektashi and from other pilgrims also, Muslim pilgrims, will come to the monastery of Sveti Naum, and they identify the makam identify it as the makam of Sari Saltok. And with this, I thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful presentation. I mean, this was also for me crash course.
Sorry.
Yeah,
with the lama, yeah.
And now the floor is open for Yilmaz Kahraman, who's going to talk us about Alevism revival in Europe. Yeah.
Γεια σας. Συγγνώμη, δεν μιλάω ελληνικά. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like warmly welcome you and thanks for the organizers for this important conference and invitation. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to the Alevi Federation of Germany. We call it AABF. We have in Germany over 3 million people which came from Turkey or have their origin in Turkey, and over 700,000 of them are Alevis. Some of them are born there, some are more than 50 years there now. And the Alevis in Germany, they have been organizing themselves in Alevi associations for over 30 years. Today, I will give you an insight to the level of the organization and the history behind it, the history in Germany, the Alevi history in Germany. It's important to know that we initially divided the Alevi history in Germany in two periods. The first period is before the year 1993, and then in the other after this year. Why is this year so important? During a pogrom in Turkey, in East Anatolia, in the city of Sivas, 35 people were burned to death in front of the Turkish public. This massacre is etched in the memory of all Alevis. Indignation and anger have sparked a wave of protests, also in Germany and Europe. The failure of the Turkish state and the reprisals against the Alevi population triggered in many demonstrations. We were angry with Ankara. We were angry with Ankara, with the Turkish government, with the history, with all the problems what Alevis had. And these 8,000 Islamists who were not only ones to blame of the pogrom of the 2nd July in 1993, the state was also responsible and continues to protect the murders from this day. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I have to go into the history of immigration of Germany. And the Alevi migrants, they not only migrated to Germany with their families, they also took their faith, their culture with them, their identity, their Alevi identity, and with them, the politics surrounding this identity. Please forgive me for reading a lot during my lecture today. I usually give my lectures in German, and I have a challenge with English today. So I think that you know the political problems with the Alevis in Turkey also in the Turkish history, in the Turkish state, before in the Ottoman Empire, and before in the Seljuk Empire. So I will start directly with Germany, because Alevis are today not only limited in Turkey alone. With the influx of these people who were previously referred to Europe as guest workers, Alevi religious communities also emigrated in Germany and a lot of European countries. Among the people of Turkish origin with a migrant background in Germany, the number of Alevis is around 700 and 800,000. So there are different counts, because some researchers say it's about 600,000. The Alevi community says no, we are more than 800,000, but that's normal, because a community will show his own bigger than they are in real. So I take the count of 700,000. Alevism is therefore one of the largest religious communities in Germany. The Alevi Federation of Germany, so the IABF, is the only umbrella organization of Alevis living in Germany, and according to studies by the Federal Ministry of Interior, Bundesministerium des Inneren, they say that the AABF represents more than 275,000 people. There was a research in 2009 about the Islamic, they call it the Islamic people, and they were looking in this research how many organizations represent how many Muslims in Germany, because we have very different organizations there, also from the Sunni people, and some of them, they were in the public and said that they represent all Muslims in Germany. And after this research, we have exactly counts how many organizations represents how many people there. And they said in this research that the Alevi community, the organization represents more than 275,000 Alevis in Germany. The AABF therefore has exclusive representation of the mostly Anatolian Alevis living in Germany. So they are from Anatolia, and it means they are from Turkey, in origin from the area what is today Turkey. With this group represented, it represents one of the largest organizations in the Federal Republic, founded by people with a migrant background. The Alevi community of Germany is recognized as a religious community in the German law with an article. It's the 7th paragraph, I think, that will say nothing for this conference, but we are also from the government recognized as a religious group. And we are also members of a lot of conferences, also conferences which is organized by the government. In contrast to many other organizations, especially the one with the relation for Turkey, the Alevi community of Germany is a German phenomenon. It founded an association that had no previous structures in Turkey. So if you look to the Sunni organizations, they have mosques, but they have also in Turkey something like the Diyanet, and the Diyanet built new mosques in Europe, and we are a total German phenomenon. The most important achievements of the Alevi community in Germany include the renaissance of the Alevi faith and teaching in Germany, as well as the introduction of religious instructions in now 8 federal states. We have a lot of federal states in Germany, and in that states where the migration is, there are also Alevis, and in these states we have these religious instruction. The establishment of the Alevi doctrine in teaching and research at German universities, as well as the recognition of the AABF as a corporation under public law, are most important goals on the association's political agenda. The Alevi community of Germany is also member of the Alevi Union of Europe. We have more than 15 countries in Europe, and they are all in an embracer in a bigger association, which is called Alevi Union Europe. So we have in France, in Belgium, in Holland, and in over 15 countries in Europe. The original areas of responsibility of the AABF includes the revitalization of the Alevism in Germany, writing and publishing Alevi teachings, promote interreligious dialogue and cooperation, advising politics and society, establishment of a culture of commemoration and remembrance, anti-discrimination and human rights education, promoting and affirming democratic raisings, professionalization and qualification of facilities and organization of the immigrant society, and awareness raising, education, public relation work. Until when into the 1980s, they hardly operated in a public as an independent group, neither in Turkey nor in Germany. Those who were Alevi lived out of their faith in secret, or not all, otherwise they would have been exposed to repression by the Sunni authorities and fellow human beings at the Seljuk and Ottoman empires and the Turkish Republic. These included not only discrimination and individual exclusion in everyday life, but also the target destruction of Alevi religious houses, the ojaks, and the religious and cultural literature as well as recruiting programs in Alevi villages. Out of fear and to protect themselves from further persecution, discrimination and expulsion, Alevis did not identify themselves to non-Alevis. Their fight was also often kept secret from their own children, so that they would not to bubble things on at school or in front of other children. The Alevi priests, we call them female Anna and male Dede Pir, also only passed on the rites and customs of the Alevi teachings to their followers in secrets. This behavior is referred in the Turkish as takiye. Takiye means camouflage. So Alevis did not openly identify themselves as such, and sometimes apparently adopted Sunni practice and behavioral measures into order not to attract attention among the Sunni majority population. Even when they emigrated from Turkey to Germany in the 1960s, many Alevis remained attached to the Takiye principle out of fear to being stigmatized again here by the Germans as well as Sunni guest workers. For the Germans, all people of Turkish origin were without distinction Turks, and they were automatically Muslims because they moved from Turkey to Germany, so they looked to their passports and say, okay, they are Turks and Muslims, all of them. The state also did not record immigrants according to ethnic or religious criteria, but rather according to occupation groups and country of origin. The Takiye principle also meant that Alevi organized themselves very late. While some Sunni immigrants from Turkey gradually founded mosque associations in Germany, Alevi did not engage in any religious-oriented activities in public. So the Takir was also in Germany for the first 20, 30 years. Instead, they were more likely to participate in political organizations that were largely social democratic or left-wing in nature. But even there, they did not appear explicitly as Alevis. There were only 2 clubs that were founded specifically by Alevis in the Germany at the time, at around the 1970s. The name is Ameleler Birliği and Yurtsevenler Birliği that are worker associations. However, these organizations did not appear the outside world explicitly as an Alevi organization and initially only had local significance. This public resistance only changed at the end of the 70s with a drastic event. We have to know that in Germany there is a very big Turkish community, so there are transnational affairs to Turkey. So everything what in Turkey happens, there is an influence to Germany, and what in Germany happens, there is also an influence to Turkey, because there is a very big community. In December 1978, hundreds of Alevi were killed in East Anatolia city of Maraş. This program was organized by the supporters of the Turkish Nationalist Party, MHP, Milliyetçi Hareket Partisi. Its members are advocates of the ideology of the Turkish Islamic synthesis, so a radical form from the official doctrine of the country. So, because in Turkey there is a doctrine that you have to be one country and with one language and with one religion, so there is a very extreme politics about this to make everyone homogeneous. For them, anyone who is not ethnically Turkish, has Turkish as their mother tongue, or follows Sunni Islam, is outside of the norm, so they're not conform. They are outside of the form and must either be assimilated or destroyed. In addition to Alevis, this also affects, for example, Armenians, Kurds, Greeks, Pontiac Greeks, and Yazidis. Although this background to crime in Maraş was well known, the killing of these people was generally described by the Turkish public as the result of violence between right-wing and left-wing political activists, in which the left-wingers only happened to be Alevi. Maraş was not the first large-scale extermination operation against Alevis. The Dersim genocide from the year 1937-38 to the earliest of the day of the Turkish Republic was far more extensive, but has hardly been dealt with to this day. Dersim is a mountainous region in eastern Anatolia, and the Dersim highlands have for centuries provided refuge to people who were persecuted by the system, both religious and politically. The Ottoman Empire and the mountainous Dersim functioned as a castle and offered many Alevi protecting from the Ottoman government, which systematically persecuted this religious community. While the Ottomans were never really able to get hold of the people of this region, Atatürk's government set up a plan in 1935 years. Oh, okay. Okay, it's too much. and cleans Dersim. In this context, it should be mentioned that the Armenian genocide in 1915, the Dersim region also provided the safe haven for extermination of estimated 40,000 Armenians. So there are a lot of problems with the history, and by the years, these problems got more because the system changed, but the doctrines didn't change. And when the massacre in Sivas has been in 1993, to this time, the Alevis, they were all lived in this Takir principle. They don't say that they are Alevi. They make everything in secret. And 1993, they were angry. They went out and made demonstrations, and these demonstrations get more and more. And the hour for to be an organization who is in the publicity and this coming out from the Takir was exactly in this year. After this year, a lot of associations were built in Germany. So if we look to the counts, till 1993, there were about 40 associations in Germany. So they built in the 80s. And between 1993 and 1995, we built more than 100 associations. And they get together, they have an umbrella organization, the AABF, and then they started to fight with Ankara. They said, we are Alevis, we want recognition, we want equal rights. And by the time in Turkey, you know it better. With AKP, the situation is very, very bad. It gets every day more bad. But in Germany, it's totally the opposite, because we were recognized as a religious group in 2007, and in the December of 2020, we were recognized in Germany. It's called Körperschaft des öffentlichen Rechtes. So we are recognized. We have the statue like the churches. So in one state, and it will in the next years it will be also continue in these other 8 states where Alevis lives. So that is the history of the Alevis in Germany. So our religion is for freedom, and our worldview is democratic, and we are very, very close also to the Christian culture in Germany. We are known as the people who were good integrated, and in all conferences I say we are not open for everything. I mean, if my parents moved to Iran or to Saudi Arabia, I'm sure we were not good integrated there. But in Europe, with the democratic words and also with the Christian culture, we have a lot of similarities. We have also differences, but that's good. We must have also differences, and we are recognized as a group. My text is longer, but I think the time is finished. Thank you for your time. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you, Yilmaz, for the talk. Yeah, I think I'll have to unseat you. Yeah, we'll do that. Oh, take the questions now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions now before we get to the second group? Yeah.
Cannot present any information concerning religious or ethnic origin of the people. Can you have any official estimation about the number of Alevis in motherland in Turkey? I mean, from correlation between the German or Dutch people, immigrants and so on, and there is any unofficial, let's say, statistical data concerning the Kurdish ethnicity of Alevis community in Germany, in Netherlands, or in France?
Probably the first part would be good answer, right? Is there any other question?
Additional to that, if also Sarah can tell us about the Alevi communities in the Balkans, some numbers, if there are some official statistics, numbers, whether
You want to talk to, yeah, for the translators.
if we have some statistics about Alevi communities in the Balkans.
You want to ask question? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's wait for taking some questions and you can answer together.
I will be very short. Thank you very much for both of you for your wonderful presentations. The first is for the Alevis in Germany. Do they have communications with Bektashis in Germany? And the second is for you, Sarah. Your travel is wonderful, and we could understand that a big part of Southern Eastern Europe today. Do these communities in Albania, North Macedonia, and Kosovo, they do have relations between them? Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. There is a question here. If
You want to continue? No, only adding to that about the Balkans, the Balkan Alevis. We have no idea about Bulgaria. Nobody mentioned Bulgaria. If somebody can tell us something. There, no.
maybe you organize next time.
Vangelis organized. just a kind of information regarding Albanian Bektashis in Greece, just to connect to what Sarah was presenting. You know that Torbali Sultan Teke in Farsala or in Thessalia was alive with a small community that remained without community, but only the dervishes in the. So from 10 ended to 1 in the 70s. But it's a very interesting story in relation to the recognition of the spiritual leader of the chief Baba of Albania. So in the transition from Albania before communism and in the beginning of the communist period of time in 1946-47, there is an interesting story regarding how the Albanian Bektashis of Teke recognize, trying to find out who is the leader. And this is a very interesting story because we have one in Albania, one in Cairo, you know, when they moved, and all the story that I just found some archival materials. It's interesting to connect with the offspring of Albanian Bektashism in Greece.
Okay, other questions? I'll need to ask you to be very brief before I destroy the entire room. So.
Well, thank you for these fascinating questions. I hope I have everything, I remember everything properly. I have to confess, I have no data. I mean, I looked at some statistics. The last statistics that I came across were from 2011, and they were only about the Bektashis, and it was, I mean, it's always estimated that the Bektashis are about 10 or 11%. It's the traditional estimate of the Albanian population, but in the census of 2011, I mean, I'm saying this off the back of my head because I didn't just reading it, they were 1% or something like that only. So I mean, it just depends on. They include, of course, all the Ashiks and all families that have some connection to the Bektashis. As for the Alevis, I know of no statistics whatsoever, in Albania or the Kosovo or North Macedonia. I'm not aware of anything. The question was, help me again. the connection, yeah, maybe I was too fast, and so this wasn't quite clear, and so thank you for the question, because that's important. Most of the Bektashis in Albania, there are some very small exceptions, but virtually all of them are, of course, connected to the so-called world headquarters in Tirana. The Dede Baba, the current Dede Baba is Baba Mondi, and the same, of course, in Kosovo. In Kosovo, you have the Jakova Teke is under the umbrella of the world headquarters, and likewise in North Macedonia, the Harabati Baba Teke, or Teche, and the Teche in Kičevo has some allegiances with the Dede Baba, Haydar Ercan Dede Baba in Izmir, rather than with Baba Mondi. And the third community in Kanatlache, it's also a Turkish community, they are not affiliated they're not connected to either group.
We don't know about official counts, numbers. Maybe the Turkish state has it, but we don't know. It's nothing in the public. But there was an interesting thing, I think, about 10 years ago. Yusuf Halaçoğlu, he was working for the government, for the state, for the History Association of the state. And he told in a live show, he said, you can make what you want. Even if you go to the mosque and make namaz, we know who is who. We have numbers about you. So we don't know what he means with that, but it was interesting that a representative of the state is saying something like that. So, and he continued, we know who is from the Armenian families, who is Kurdish and who not. And the researchers, they have different numbers. Some say in Turkey live more than 13, some 15, and there is also others which say more than 20 million. We don't know really about it, but it's also the problem with the other minorities. And in Germany, we include a lot of Alevi and Bektashi, not all, a lot of Alevi Bektashi, because the associations, a lot of them, they have the name Alevi Bektashi, and we have to know that in the Bektashi tradition there are also two groups, the Dedegyan and the Babagyan. The whole Alevis, you can divide it in two groups. There are a lot more smaller groups, but in two big groups. The Kızılbaş, they are organized in these Ojaks, priest families, and the Bektashi in dergahs. We see a lot of photos of them. And the Dedegyan Bektashis, they have also something like Ojak, priest families. So they are all in a monastery, but they have also the Ojak families. In the Babagyans, they are a little bit different. Their structure is different, and they are organized by other associations. And in Albania and in Macedonia, these are Babagyan Bektashis, so the organization is different. Also, some groups in Turkey are so. And they don't speak Turkish, because when we go in the AABF associations, we make the rituals in Turkish. We have Turks and Kurds, but Turkish is lingua franca. Everyone does know it. But we were wondering about Balkan, because also 10 years ago, I have friends from Kanatlarci also. They are in our organization. We visit Harabati and Kanatlarci, and we wondered about these beautiful dergahs there, and we see the Islamists, these radical Islamic people there, and they fight with us. And I called Germany, Cologne, and I said, hey, here is a problem. We have to come here. And by the time we go with a bigger group, and then to a Nevros celebration, we were with 4 buses there, also from Austria and Switzerland and so. But I think Hussein Dervish is here. He can say us how many Bektashis lives in Albania. As I recognize, they have 1 million Bektashis there in Albania, but he knows it better if he's here.
Thank you so much. Now we have to take the seats, and since we're running out of time. Question, hopefully short question, short answer, please. It's like 2 panels in one.
Yes.
Like 2 panels. Long. Exercise. Okay. Okay. Excuse me, I think we need to restart because it's turned off. Yeah, you need to sign in again. So in the meantime, let me introduce you our first speakers and give their. Greece, people, spaces, traditions, and spiritual interactions. Once we figure out, okay, why don't you start it from? Are we ready? Is it working? Okay. Okay, so the floor is yours. 20 minutes? 20 minutes.
So, dear colleagues, actually we are a kind of trinity here. We are more or less the same subjects, or actually 3 subjects connected to one. As you can see there, we start with a historical presentation of the Bektasism in Greece. As Kostas Tsetselikis mentioned yesterday, in Greece there were many different tarikat. Mevlevi is the most famous in photographs, especially the Teki and Thessaloniki. There were Halveti and Rofai, especially in northern western, in Epirus, and the Bektasi all over Greece. Most of the Greek researchers don't know the differences. So having in mind the Bektasism, and whoever is not wearing a long brown hat and making circles, which is probably Mevlevi, all the others are Bektasi. Of course, such a thing does not happen. So I'm going to present you now my research regarding Bektasism in Greece. and if I find, okay. This is Greece, as we all know. So I start from bottom to top. In Creta, in the island of Creta, there was 6 Bektaşilik till the beginning of the 20th century. The first and the most important was the teke of Khorasanizadeh Dervish Ali Dede, which was found in 47. The interesting thing in Creta is that the people there were speaking Greek. So we have Muslims, Bektashi Muslims, locals from Creta, speaking among them in Greek. And they also had nefes in Greek, which is something very strange and interesting. I'm going to show you some photos. Most of them, I collected them from the Bektashi Dergah Archive. I don't know who is the owner of this archive, but it's a great archive. So I thank him publicly. We see two Bektashi Babas. This is very interesting. The Jafer Sadiq Baba was very young, Mujahid, recognized, and here you see the carte visite in Greek, because he was Greek speaking. Here is this at the left is a typical Cretan costume. And these are Muslim, Bektashi Muslims, yes, and here Jafer Sadiq Baba. Here there is a congress with the Babas. I like this guy pointing at that, his finger. Again, a congress where also the Baba from Misr, from Kaykusur Sultan is participating. And this is the last Ashura celebration in Khorasani Dede Baba, Ali Baba, is the Ashura of 1922. In 1923, they had to leave. Here is the teke, here is the turbe, and the along graveyards and olive trees. Typical South Greece or Mediterranean, let's say. This is what has remained from the Khorassanizadeh dervish. All the teke was ruined, then the Greek state took it, and I don't know why they managed, I have some ideas, they managed to keep the turbe. But the turbe was not remaining as a holy place, the turbe was turned to a house. I like it very much because it's a kind of continuation. Where Khorasani Dede Baba, Ali Dede was lying, now Mr. Thanasis is lying. Here is the bed, you see. I like it very much. So, we move from Crete northern. We know we have elements, data, that there were Bektashi communities in Athlion and in Aegion, at that time named Vostitsa. There are no remainings, but there are written information. There is a written information. And then we move to Thessaly. Here we start having Albanian-speaking Bektashis. So is the teke of Turbali Sultan here in Farsala, is the teke of in Tembi, I will tell you, and in Konica. This is what remains from the teken of Baba Hussein in Konica, only the turbe. We know that in Konica there were two Bektashi tekes, one in the south, and this is the south of Konica, and one in the north, near the house of Zeynel Hanum, who was the father of Tepeleni Ali Pasha. The mother. Sorry. And here is the old sign showing that it says Moni, monastery, teke of Farsala. I like it very much. This is in 1999 when we started visiting the area. In 1955 there was a very big earthquake which destroyed the whole area of Thessaly. This is the basement of the Meydan. From up and here was the Meydan, and we have very good descriptions from travelers about the interior of the Meydan. Here is the Ashevi, as you can understand. And the teke as it was in 1999, here we see all the graves of the post-Nisins. This is the only photograph I could find from the Philippe Eli Ahmed Mehdi Baba. At 99, this is the Turbe. It says the La ilaha illallah. It was a bit strange for me to see at the top of a Turbe the La ilaha illallah. It indicates Sunni presence. Anyway, this was the case, and at the same time there was this icons of St. George, St. Mary, the typical two saints, Orthodox saints, staying by the Muslim saints. The Teke of Durbali Sultan is this, I think it's named Ethemitas, it's the fourth, with fourth bench. And here is how it was in 1921. It was what was remaining from the older times. The older times is 1971, I will tell you later. Then Albanian, this is how it was in 32. Sorry, I'm a bit, yes, yeah, confused. And this picture came in my mind when our colleague said usually the turbe remains in a teke. We saw it in Baba Hussein. Here is the situation before the earthquake. And this is Baba Said Koga Vandresa is the last dervish, and at the same time Babat, and at the same time post-Nishin in the teke of Durbali Sultan. He died in 1971. And then after 89, 90s, Albanian migrant workers started coming here. They found the teke of Durbali Sultan and started to make some kinds of renovations. So this is information. Tsitsilikis Kostas in 2009 took this photo. And this is how it became inside. They put all these beautiful tiles down, and all these are adak. They managed to find the Lefha, the foundation, the founding, yeah, inscription. And here is, in Turkish, it's a proverb which says, Cehalet korkunç bir şey. Here is the tomb of an Albanian origin officer of the Ottoman army who died there, and he was buried there. It is this tomb is very beautiful. So the workers there decided that this is the tomb of Durbali Sultan, most probably. And they put a sign here, Durbali Sultan, in order to recognize it. They knew that inside the turbe something was existing, but outside this was the beautiful thing in order to be shown off. Here is this year, the visit of Albanian Bektashis. They make a kind of celebration on the 1st of May. So quite often people from Albania come and visit this place, and among them this year it was the hierarchy, Baba Mondi, other Babas, and at the same time Babas from Turkey. Here is the Thracian people know him, the Eric Baba, Ayhan Eric Baba, yes. And two dervishes, these two dervishes are interesting guys. They are both from Manisa, from Izmir, but they have Greek origin, from the Bektashis from Creta. And they speak some Greek still. So when they went there, wearing this hirka, and started speaking Greek to the local Greeks who were by the Albanians who were celebrating the 1st of May, this thing started becoming very interesting, as you can imagine, from a cultural point of view. We move to Thessaly. Here is the Hassan Baba, the turbe of Hassan Baba at Tembi. It's very interesting. Most of these people consider this building as a Sunni building. But up here, there is a marble Taj. At the first time I visited, there was also a clock sitting up there and showing here, you have to see here. And this is the Taj, the Bektashi Taj. There are inscriptions inside, and this is the teke around. I think that this is the Ashvi. I see here the Ojak, and you see some lamps here. Yeah? You see them? They're eyes in the dark. We move northern. At Kastoria, there was a very big teke, mentioned also by Haslok. But in 1950s, it was demolished by the Greek authorities of Albanian origin, let's say, Bektasis. In Katerini, still the turbe exists. Here is, as I was informed, it was Abdullah Baba. This was the situation in 1999. In Katerini, there was a small group of Albanian origin Greek citizens who remained after the exchange because they were of Albanian origin, and they were a very rich community. So we were, with these people, visited this place. This is the situation as it was at that time inside and outside. And then a restoration took place. The last owner of the turbe, it was Dr. Hasan Bektaş, who before dying offered the ownership to the municipality. So they decided to make a kind of restoration. They clean all this up, and you see this, I like this lion face at this Cheshme house. And here is the visit of the one Turk, two of Cretan origin Turk Bektasis, and this is Lady Nuray Bekta, the last person remaining for this family who has some kind of remembrance of the life of the family. I mean the religious life. After her, her sons and her grandsons they just wonder why they carry Muslim names and the family name is Bektashi. I also find this photo from Bektashi Derya. He is from Refik Engin Archive. It's a researcher from Tekirdağ. So we move northern. Also in Thessaloniki there were tekes, and there was also a Bektashi cemetery. But around 70s, some renovation and such works took place. So the bones were taken and were transferred to Katerini, to the Bektashi cemetery. We have some photos. Also in Thessaloniki, they were Albanian-speaking Bektasis. And somewhere here is the line between Albanian-speaking Bektasis and Turkish-speaking Bektasis. We have data showing that in Kavala there were tekes, Bektashi tekes. And also there were a mill owned by Bektashi Baba. But there are no any remainings. In Thessaloniki here, we see the turbe of Musa Baba. It's strange because we have a turbe, but not a teke around. There are some graves here. It's now renovated. It's from the period of the Nakshi Bektashi period after the closing of 1826, I estimate. And then we move to Thrace. Regarding Bektashi tekes, because there are more other tekes, we have in Xanthi, not the teke of Kyutuklu Baba, and of course I will show you. And then in Rusa, the Kızıldeli, and down there in Mikroverio, the Asha teke, the turbe. But it was a teke. We know there are incredibly big historical information about that and how it was destroyed after the 1926. And only the turbe remained. And there are also some stones from the basement of the Maidan or something other things. I don't know what might this be. So, this is the teke of Hasib Baba in Xanthi. We don't really know when it was established. I don't think it's a very late thing because we have 2 or 3 tombstones out of that. There is no Bektashi community in Xanthi. So the teke was turned in a place of Islamic folk religion. People go there, not being Bektashis, living adak, such as you can see the tesbih and all these things here. It's very interesting. This teke in Greece is very interesting because of the historical element. These are also adak. And here are the historic elements. This is a throne. I don't know the Ottoman name of the throne, which has Allah Ali Hassan Hussein. It's very interesting. And here we have all this, which is called Sheikh Mutekas. At the time, the Sheikh was sitting, because he was very old, he was holding, he was putting his hand on that. This is the Nefir, the famous Nefir, and we have these things also. Such things we cannot find, despite the fact we know that they were existing also in Farsal, in Turbali Sultan, and in, also in Rosa, in Kızılderili, do not exist anymore. And now we move to the tekke of Sayyid Ali Sultan. It was found in 1402 Anno Domini. This is the founding inscript. And this is the tomb of Kızılderili as it was before the renovation. This is how it is after the renovation. Yeah. This is the gate of the Meydan. You will, all the people who will come with us tomorrow will be able to see this. This is the entrance of the Meydan from a fireplace. This is a very interesting thing for the historians, the black stone and the white stone. This is maybe the holiest part in the tekke. From an anthropological point of view, I don't want now to take more time in order to analyze. Anyways, this is the corner with the 12 candles and the teslim tasi, you see. You have seen all the tekkes in Albania, you will see the same structure. The 12 candles, one is staying on the white stone, and here are the 11 and the teslim tasi. Here is the famous Asevi. I like the Asevi very much. I'm part of the group of the cooks. And this is the graveyard outside the turbe. Yes, the turbe. It's interesting. You can see this is a Bektashi Taj, and this is from the time of the Naqshbandi. And this is a Bektashi Taj. This is the Asateke of the turbe of the Asateke of Kızılderili, octagonal. And this is the interior as it was in the beginning. Now I think things has changed. But you see all these candles lighted in here. It's very interesting. So this is the situation in Greece, I think. Yeah. And from now on, we go on to the community. We need to change. How do we change? We need to escape this? No. To close this. This? Okay. And Vangelis and Aise will present, okay, the situation nowadays.
Εγώ θα συνεχίσω στα ελληνικά. Αγαπητοί συμμετέχοντες, αγαπητοί φίλοι, σας καλωσορίζω και εγώ με τη σειρά μου σε αυτό το ωραίο συμπόσιο εκ μέρους του ανώτερου οργάνου των εκπροσώπων της κοινότητας των Αλεβίτων Μπεκτασίδων που ζουν στην ελληνική Τράκη και συνδέονται με τον μπεκτασικό τεκέ του Σεϊτ Αλι Σουλτάν, γνωστό και ως Kızılderili. Και ευχαριστώ ιδιαίτερα το Ίδρυμα Μόχα και την κυρία Άννα Μισηριάν, καθώς και την Οργανωτική Επιτροπή του Συμποζίου, τον κύριο Βαγγέλη Αρετέο και τον κύριο Γιώργο Μαυραμάτη και την κυρία Ζεϊνέπ Τουρκίλμας, που με την πρωτοβουλιά τους και με την δουλειά τους που έφεραν όλους εμάς κοντά στο πλαίσιο αυτό του συμποζίου. Για εμάς, την Επιτροπή Μουσουλμάνων Αλεβίτων Θράκης, αλλά και για όλη την κοινότητά μας, είναι μεγάλη χαρά που βρισκόμαστε σήμερα εδώ. Βλέπουμε αυτό το συμπόζιο ως μια εξαιρετική ευκαιρία να συστηθούμε στο ελληνικό, αλλά και στο διεθνές κοινό, ελπίζοντας ότι αυτή η παρουσίαση και η γνωριμία θα συμβάλλει στο να πετύχουμε τον ύψιστο στόχο μας, δηλαδή στο να αναγνωριστούμε από την ελληνική πολιτεία και τυπικά ως μια θρησκευτική κοινότητα. Βεβαίως και είμαστε Έλληνες πολίτες. Από τη στιγμή που η Τράκη εντάχθηκε στον ελληνικό εθνικό κορμό, δηλαδή εδώ και 100 χρόνια, είμαστε περίπου 3.500 άνθρωποι και ζούμε σε μια ομάδα ορεινών χωριών της Ροδόπης και του Εύρου γύρω από τον τεκέ του Κızılderili, που σημειωτέων. Είναι ένα από τα 4 μεγαλύτερα θρησκευτικά μπεκτασικά κέντρα του κόσμου, το δεύτερο στη σειρά. Βεβαίως και είμαστε μουσουλμάνοι. Είμαστε αφοσιωμένοι στον προφήτη Μωαμέτ και στον διαδόχο του Αλή. Αναγνωρίζουμε τους 12 ημάμιδες και τιμάμε την ιερή οικογένεια Εχλιμπέιτ και την θυσία των μέλων της οικογένειας της. Τρινούμε την θυσία του Ιμάμ Χουσέιν και πενθούμε κάτω τον μήνα Μουχαρέμ. Γιορτάζουμε την γέννηση του Ιμάμ Αλή με τη γιορτή Νευρούς στις 21 του Μαρτίου. Ομολογούμε την πίστη μας και την δέσμευσή μας να την υποστηρίζουμε. Όταν εισερχόμαστε σε αυτό τον πνευματικό δρόμο, επιλέγουμε έναν οδηγό που λέμε ρεχπέρ και μετά έναν συνοδοιπόρο μουσαΐ που το λέμε, με τον οποίο πλέον θεωρούμαστε αδέρφια. Κάνουμε τις λατρευτικές μας συνάξεις σε ευτήριους οίκους, άρα τζέμεβλεροι, άνδρες και γυναίκες μαζί, με επικεφαλής τους καθοδηγητές μας, οντεδές, που κάποιο τρόπο είναι και οι κληρικοί μας. Ο επικεφαλής κληρικός της κοινότητάς μας, ο επωνομαζόμενος και ντεντέ, λαμβάνει την διαπίστευση από το θρησκευτικό και διοικητικό κέντρο των Μπεκτασί, το ονομαζόμενο Πυρ Εβε, το σπίτι του γέροντα, του προστάτη Αγίου μας, του Χατζή Μπεκτάς, του φίλου του Θεού Χατζή Μπεκτάς Βελή. Στη συνέχεια, οι καθοδηγητές σε κάθε χωριό λαμβάνουν άδεια από αυτόν και έτσι προχωράμε στις λατρευτικές μας συνάξεις. Κανένας από τους θρησκευτικούς μας λειτουργούς δεν λαμβάνει κάποιο είδους μισθό για την υπηρεσίες που προσφέρει στην κοινότητα. Οι οικογένειες που αποτελούν την κοινότητά μας μένουν κυρίως στα χωριά Σιδηρό, Μεγάλο Δέριο, Γονικό, Ρούσα, Μεσημέρι, Μυρτίσκι, Ουράνιο, Πετρόλοφος, Χλόη, Άνω Κάμπη, Κούνια, Χαμηλό και Κισός. Παράλληλα, πολλά μέλη της κοινότητάς μας είναι διασπαρμένα σε πόλεις της Θράκης, αλλά και σε όλη την Ελλάδα, σε πολλές ευρωπαϊκές χώρες και στην Τουρκία, καθώς έχουν μετάβει εκεί περιστασιακά ή μόνιμα και σε αναζήτηση εργασίας. Αξίζει να αναφέρω εδώ ότι η περιοχή μας γνώρισε έντονη μετανάστευση προς την Μπρούσα, ιδιαίτερα τη διαρκεία του 1990. Εκεί οι άνθρωποι μας ίδρυσαν 2 ευτήριους οίκους, όπου τελούνται θρησκευτικές τελετές από καθοδηγητές που συνδέονται με τον εδώ θρησκευτικό αρχηγό της κοινότητάς μας. Στα περισσότερα από τα χωριά που προανέφερα υπάρχουν ευτήριοι οίκοι και τελούνται θρησκευτικές λειτουργίες. Δεν υπάρχουν ευτήριοι οίκοι στη Μυρτίσκη, τη Χλόη και το Σιδηρό. Είναι σημαντικό να αναφέρω ότι από τους ευτήριους οίκους, δηλαδή τζέμεβληροι, που υπάρχουν στα παραπάνω χωριά, μόνο ο ευτήριος οίκος του Μεγάλου Δερίου είναι τυπικά και νόμιμα αναγνωρισμένος από τον κράτος ως τόπος λατρείας. Έτσι, όλοι οι υπόλοιποι ευτήριοι οίκοι εμφανίζονται δυστυχώς καταχωρημένοι ως αποθήκες που ανήκουν σε ιδιώτες, παρά το ότι ουσιαστικά ανήκουν σε όλη την κοινότητα του κάθε χωριού, αφού έχουν κατασκευαστεί με την συμβολή όλων των κατοίκων. Ως ένας από τους λόγους που συμβαίνει αυτό, θεωρούμε ότι είναι και το γεγονός ότι δεν είμαστε αναγνωρισμένοι επίσημα ως θρησκευτική κοινότητα. Το να λειτουργούν χώροι λατρείας που δεν είναι αναγνωρισμένοι, τόπο λατρείας, εμφανίζει πολλά προβλήματα. Δεν μπορεί να γίνει με σύνομο τρόπο η αναγκαία διαρρύθμιση και δεν μπορούν να γίνουν επισκευές δεν μπορούν να γίνουν επισκευές όταν απαιτείται, ενώ συχνά εμφανίζονται και κληρονομικά ζητήματα. Πιστεύουμε όμως ότι αυτά τα προβλήματα θα ξεπεραστούν το συντομότερο δυνατό και περιμένουμε την ημέρα που θα αναγνωριστούμε νομικά. Για την ιστορία του θρησκευτικού κέντρου που σήμερα είναι γνωστό ως ο Μπεκτασικός τεκές του Kızılderili, Υπόθηκαν νωρίτερα πολλά και ενδιαφέροντα πράγματα από τους αξιότιμους ερευνητές, συγγραφείς και επιστήμονες που συμμετέχουν στο συμπόζιο μας. Έτσι λοιπόν, εγώ θα αναφερθώ συνοπτικά στο πώς έχουν στις μέρες μας τα πράγματα. Αρχή της σύγχρονης λειτουργίας μας ως νομική οντότητα μπορούμε να θεωρήσουμε το έτος 2018. Τότε ήταν που συγκροτήθηκε μια επιτροπή από 9 εξέχοντα μέλη της κοινότητάς μας με σκόπο να εκπροσωπεί την κοινότητά μας και να συνομιλεί με τις αρχές. Η επιτροπή αυτή υπέβαλε τον Μάιο του 2018 ένα αίτημα στο Υπουργείο Παιδείας και Θρησκευμάτων για την διοργάνωση λατρευτικών και άλλων συναφών τελετών στους χώρους του ΤΕΚΕ. Έτσι, με απόφαση που έλαβε το Υπουργείο στις 18 Μαΐου του 2018, οργανώσαμε στον ΤΕΚΕ για πρώτη φορά με την αναγνώριση των αρχών τις 5 μεγάλες ζωοθυσίες, που λέμε και κουρμπάν, και τις αντίστοιχες τελετές που προβλέπονται στον λατρευτικό μας κύκλο. Αναφέρουμε το κουρμπάνι του Μάρτη στις 14 του μήνα, που αποτελεί και την έναρξη του καλοκαιρινού κύκλου γιορτών, στο κουρμπάνι που γίνεται στο μεσοκαλόκαιρο, στην γιορτή του Οροπεδίου, το κουρμπάνι του Άρχοντα, στις 8 Οκτωβρίου το κουρμπάνι των 12, στις 17 Δεκεμβρίου και το κουρμπάνι της γιορτής του Ασουρέ, που είναι και κινητή γιορτή, και εκείνη την χρόνια έτυχε να πέσει στις 20 Σεπτεμβρίου. Επίσης, τον Ιούνιο του 2018, η ίδια αντιπροσωπεία υπέβαλε άλλη μια αίτηση για χρήση του οροπεδίου της περιοχής Χίλια για την διοργάνωση των παραδοσιακών παλαιστικών αγώνων. Και εδώ το Υπουργείο ανταποκρίθηκε θετικά και στις 29 Ιουνίου 2018 μας παραχώρησε την περιοχή για χρήση μέχρι να τελειώσει η εκδήλωσή μας. Αυτές οι ημερομηνίες που ανέφερα είναι πολύ σημαντικές και πολύτιμες για εμάς, τους Αλεβίτες Μπεκτασίδες της ελληνικής Θράκης. Και αυτό διότι για πρώτη φορά μπορέσαμε να συνομιλήσουμε με το κράτος θεσμικά και μάλιστα σε επίπεδο Υπουργείο. Υπήρξε θεσμική εκπροσώπησή μας και τις απάντησεις που λάβαμε τις θεωρούμε απαρχή αναγνώρισης νομικής υπόστασης. Ο επόμενος λίθος στο χτίσιμο της θεσμικής μας αναγνώρισης τοποθετήθηκε στις 10 Δεκεμβρίου του 2021, που είναι και Παγκόσμια ημέρα ανθρώπινων δικαιωμάτων. Τότε, για πρώτη φορά στην ιστορία μας, ένας Έλληνας υπουργός και συγκεκριμένο υπουργός εξωτερικών κύριος Νίκος Δένδιας επισκέφτηκε την κοινότητά μας. Του μιλήσαμε για μας, τον ξαναγήσαμε στο ΤΕΚΕ και συζητήσαμε μαζί του με τα πολλά προβλήματα που αντιμετωπίζουμε. Το επόμενο βήμα σε αυτή την πορεία έγινε σχετικά γρήγορα. Κατά τη διάρκεια της πανδημίας του κορονοϊού, κατασκευάστηκε στο χωριό στο Μεγάλο Δερείο ο πρώτος αναγνωρισμένος εκτήριος οίκος και ύστερα στις 10 Απριλίου 2021 λάβαμε την άδεια. Στις 19 Ιουνίου του 2022 έγιναν τα επίσημα εγγένεια του από τον Γραμματέα Θρησκευμάτων του Υπουργείου Παιδείας, κύριο Γιώργο Καλαϊτζή, παρουσία με βουλευτών του νόμου Εύρου, δημάρχων, άλλων επισήμων και πολλών φίλων από διάφορες περιοχές. Αγαπητοί φίλοι, όπως καταλαβαίνετε, η θεσμική μας αναγνώριση είναι το θέμα που μας απασχολεί περισσότερο. Χαιρόμαστε πολύ για όλα αυτά τα βήματα που έγιναν. Και τώρα περιμένουμε να εγκριθούν και τα υπόλοιπα αιτήματά μας. Να αναγνωριστεί από την πολιτεία ο ΤΕΚΕ του Κızılderili ως το θρησκευτικό μας κέντρο, να αναγνωριστούν οι εκτήριοι οίκοι μας στα χωριά ως τόποι θρησκευτικής λατρείας και οι πνευματικοί μας καθοδηγητές να γίνουν αποδεκτοί ως αναγνωρισμένη θρησκευτική λειτουργία. Φοβάμαι όμως σας κουράζω τώρα με όλα αυτά, γι' αυτό τα αφήνω και περνάω στην παρουσίαση των γιορτών μας θρησκευτικών και άλλων. Εκτός από το γνωστό σε όλους Κουρμπάν και Ραμαζάν Μπαϊράμ, έχουμε εμείς και άλλες δύο σημαντικές γιορτές. Η μία είναι η γιορτή Νεύρους, που γιορτάζουμε στις 21 Μαρτίου. Ονομάζεται και Σουλτάν Νεύρους και θεωρείται η μέρα που γεννήθηκε ο Ιμάμ Αλή, όπως είναι και η ιερινή ησημερία. Από εδώ και μετά η μέρα αρχίζει να μεγαλώνει και η φύση ξυπνά από τον ύπνο το χειμώνα και ξαναζωντανεύει. Έτσι λοιπόν την ημέρα που γεννήθηκε ο Ιμάμ Αλή και ταυτόχρονα ξεκινάει η Άνοιξη. Εμείς οργανώνουμε και θρησκευτικές τελετές και άλλους εορτασμούς. Μία άλλη σημαντική μέρα γιορτής για μας είναι το Χεντρελές της 6 Μαΐου, που είναι 45 μέρες μετά την ιερινή ησημερία. Το Χεντρελές είναι η μέρα που σύμφωνα με την παράδοση συναντιούνται ο προφήτης Χιζρ και ο προφήτης Ηλιάς. Πιστεύουμε ότι όταν ο Χιζρ και ο Ηλιάς συναντηθούν, όλες οι καλές προσευχές που γίνονται στον κόσμο θα πραγματοποιηθούν. Έτσι λοιπόν και εμείς προσευχόμαστε για αυθονία, υγεία, ειρήνη και ευτυχία. Την μέρα αυτή που ο καιρός έχει λίγο στρώσει, οργανώνουμε και γιορτασμούς σε εξωτερικούς χώρους. Κάνουμε μεγάλες κούνιες σε δέντρα και κουνιόμαστε και ανάβουμε και φωτιές και πηδάμε από πάνω. Η πιο μεγάλη όμως ανοιχτή γιορτή μας είναι οι Παλαιστικοί Αγώνες γνωστοί με το όνομα Σετσέκ, που οργανώνουμε πέρυσι στις αρχές Αυγούστου. Στο οροπέδιο 1000, κοντά στο χωρίο Ανοκάμπη. Η διοργάνωση παραδοσιακών αγώνων πάλης, όπου οι Παλαιστές αγωνίζονται έχοντας αλειψεί το σώμα τους με λάδι, είναι από τα σημαντικότερα γεγονότα για τους Μπεκτασίδες της περιοχής μας. Συμμετέχουν ξεκουστοί παραδοσιακοί Παλαιστές από διάφορες περιοχές των Βαλκανιών που αγωνίζονται με συνεχή συνοδεία παραδοσιακής μουσικής από ζουρνάδες και νταούλια. Όλα αυτά γίνονται μπροστά σε πολύπληθες κοινό που έρχεται από όλη τη Θράκη, αλλά και από τη Βουλγαρία, την Τουρκία και από ευρωπαϊκές χώρες. Οι γιορτές διαρκούν 3 μέρες και γίνονται από την επίβλεψη του αγά του οροπεδίου, που επιλέγεται από την ηγεσία της κοινότητάς μας, μεταξύ πολλών άξιων που θα δηλώσουν ενδιαφέρον. Τις μέρες αυτές θυσιάζουμε ζώα για να τιμήσουμε την μνήμη του ιδρυτή του ΤΚΕ, του Σεΐντ Αλή Σουλτάν, και προσφέρουμε γεύμα σε όλους τους συμμετέχοντες. Την πρώτη μέρα γίνεται στο χωριό του Αγά, προς τιμήν του και τις άλλες 2 μέρες στο οροπέδιο 1000, ενώ η τριήμερη εκδήλωση τελειώνει με μια θρησκευτική τελετή στον ΤΚΕ. Αξίζει να αναφέρουμε ότι αυτοί οι Παλαιστικοί αγώνες αποτελούν μια παράδοση με ιστορία 700 ετών και μέχρι τις 20ου αιώνα. Διοργανώνονταν σε μια περιοχή που ονομάζουμε Αρακτσιλάρ και αυτή τη στιγμή. Λοιπόν, όσο γνωρίζουν έστω και λίγο τη φιλοσοφία των Αλεβίτων Μπεκτασίδων, ξέρουν καλά ότι να υπηρετούμε τους ανθρώπους είναι μία από τις μεγαλύτερες λατρευτικές πράξεις για εμάς. Μία ανάλογη πράξη είναι και να προσφέρουμε τροφή στους ανθρώπους. Πρόκειται για τελετουργικά γεύματα που τα ονομάζουμε λοκμά και γίνονται με προσφορά μαγειρεμένου κρέατος από ζώα που έχουν θυσιαστεί εκείνη τη μέρα για αυτό το σκοπό. Αυτά τα δημόσια τελετουργικά μας γεύματα με προσφορά τροφής σε όλους τους παραβρισκόμενους ανεξάρτητα από καταγωγή ή θρησκεία συνοδεύουν όλες τις θρησκευτικές τελετές και τις γιορτές που στον κύκλο του χρόνου. Αυτές οι ζωοθυσίες και αυτά τα γεύματα οργανώνονται πάντα γύρω από τάφους σημαντικών για μας θρησκευτικών προσωπικότητων, που θεωρούμε μπαμπά σαν Άγιος. Κατά τη διάρκεια αυτών των τελετών προσευχόμαστε για τις ψυχές των μπαμπάδων μας. Τα ζώα είναι πάντα προσφορές ανθρώπων από την κοινότητα, που τα θυσιάζουν για διάφορους λόγους, όπως σε ένδειξη ευγνωμοσύνης, για εκπλήρωση ταμάτων, για να συνοδέψουν όρκους, για να προσευχηθούν για τις ψυχές αγαπημένων που έφυγαν από τη ζωή ή για την υγεία, την ευτυχία, την ειρήνη και την προκοπή όσων είναι στη ζωή κτλ. Έτσι λοιπόν, στον κύκλο του χρόνου διοργανώνουμε 23 τέτοιες ζωοθυσίες και γιορτές, κάποιες από τις οποίες γίνονται στον ΤΕΚΕ και άλλες στα γύρω τα χωριά. Όπως καταλαβαίνετε, η διοργάνωση τέτοιων γεύματων απαιτεί την συμμετοχή πολλών ανθρώπων. Κάποιοι θα σπάξουν και θα καθαρίζουν τα ζώα, άλλοι θα τεμαχίσουν το κρέας, άλλοι θα προετοιμαστούν και θα φροντίζουν τις φωτιές και άλλοι θα έχουν την ευθύνη του μαγειρέματος. Όλο αυτό μία μας είναι προσφορά στους μπαμπάδες και στους ανθρώπους μας και σε κάποιο τρόπο μέρος των λατρευτικών μας πρακτικών. Με τέτοια ζωοθυσία θα γίνει και αύριο. Μία τέτοια ζωοθυσία θα γίνει και αύριο, που είναι και το Κάσαμ, δηλαδή η αρχή του χειμώνα. Θα γίνει λίγο πιο πέρα από τον ΤΕΚΕ, δίπλα στον τάφο του Μουρσέλ Μπάλι, ενός από τους πιο σημαντικούς μπαμπάδες μας. Αυτή η γιορτή, αυτή η ζωοθυσία του Κάσαμ είναι πολύ σημαντική για όλους τους Αλεβίτες Μπεκτασίδες του κόσμου και είναι μία από τις μεγαλύτερες ζωοθυσίες που γίνονται στην περιοχή. Στην συγκεκριμένη γιορτή και στην συγκεκριμένη περιοχή, δηλαδή δίπλα στον τάφο του Μουρσέλ Μπάλι, συγκεντρώνονται κάθε χρόνο ένας μεγάλος αριθμός Αλεβίτων Μπεκτασίδων από τη Βουλγαρία, την Ελλάδα και την Τουρκία. Σε αυτό το κουρμπάνι και σε αυτό το τραπέζι σας καλούμε και όλους εσάς. Θα είναι χαρά μας να έρθετε εκεί πάνω στον τόπο μας και να μας γνωρίσετε από κοντά. Υπάρχουν δύο λόγοι για τους οποίους η θυσία του Νοεμβρίου είναι μια σημαντική μέρα για μας. Ο πρώτος είναι ο σεβασμός των Μουρσέλ Μπάλι. Άλλωστε, αυτός είναι και ο βασικός λόγος αυτής της θυσίας. Για την ιστορία να αναφέρω ότι ο Μουρσέλ Μπάλι είναι πνευματικό τέκνο του Σεΐντ Αλή Σουλτάν, δηλαδή του ιδρυτή του ΤΕΚΕ μας. Και ταυτόχρονα ο πατέρας του, Μπαλούμ Σουλτάν, το οποίο ο τάφος βρίσκεται στον ΤΕΚΕ του Χατζή Μπεκτάσβελη, του ιδρυτή του Μπεκτασικού τάγματος. Ο Μπαλούμ Σουλτάν, ο οποίος αναφέρεται και ως ο δεύτερος γέροντας Πύρη Σάνι, είναι αυτός που ουσιαστικά οργάνωσε το Μπεκτασικό τάγμα, συνέταξε τους κανόνες και καθιέρωσε τα ήθη και την ευπρέπεια του μπεκτασισμού. Δηλαδή, καθόρισε μια πρακτική που εφαρμόστηκε και συνεχίζει να εφαρμόζεται σε όλους τους μπεκτασίδικους τεκέδες. Ο άλλος σημαντικός λόγος είναι ότι την μέρα αυτή γιορτάζουμε την είσοδό μας στην χειμερινή περίοδο, καθώς η 8η Νοεμβρίου, που απέχει 45 μέρες μετά την φθινοπορεινή ησημερία, είναι η πρώτη μέρα του χειμώνα. Το καλοκαίρι και το φθινόπωρο έχουν πλέον τελειώσει και επάνω στο βουνό καταλαβαίνουμε καλά ότι οι νύχτες γίνονται μεγαλύτερες και η χειμώνας έρχεται. Καθώς οι νύχτες μεγαλώνουν, υπάρχει αρκετός χρόνος για προσευχή. Έτσι λοιπόν η γιορτή του Κάσαμ σηματοδοτεί και την αρχή του κύκλου των κλειστών θρησκευτικών δραστηριοτήτων. Μία διευκρίνηση που θέλω να κάνω εδώ είναι ότι στις μέρες μας, λόγω των σύγχρονων συνθηκών διαβίωσης μας, όπως είναι η εργασία σε μέρη μακριά από τα χωριά μας, οργανώνουμε την συγκεκριμένη γιορτή την Κυριακή, που είναι πιο κοντά στις 8 Νοεμβρίου, προσπαθώντας έτσι να διασφαλίσουμε ότι η κοινότητά μας μπορεί να συμμετέχει με μεγαλύτερη άνεση. Επανέρχομαι στην πρόσκληση. Πιστεύω ότι όσοι από εσάς έρθετε την αυριανή μας γιορτή, θα ζήσετε μια ενδιαφέρουσα εμπειρία. Θα συναντηθείτε με τους ανθρώπους από την κοινότητά μας. Θα δείτε από κοντά τους μπεκτασίδες της Θράκης και θα έχετε την ευκαιρία να συνομιλήσετε μαζί τους. Ίσως κάποιοι από εμάς είναι λίγο διστακτικοί, καθώς δεν είναι συνηθισμένοι να μιλάνε σε ξένους. Και καθώς η ταυτότητά μας, το αλεβίτικη που λέμε εμείς, ήταν για αιώνες μια καταπιεσμένη ταυτότητα. Ωστόσο, πιστεύω ότι αυτή η συναναστροφή θα είναι ενδιαφέρουσα για όλες τις πλευρές. Αγαπητές φίλες και αγαπητοί φίλοι, νομίζω ότι δεν έχει νόημα τώρα εδώ πω περισσότερα για την κοινότητά μας και τις δράσεις της. πολιτική, έτσι θα κλείσω την παρουσίαση αυτή με ένα μικρό σχόλιο. Ξέρετε, ακούμε κάποιες φορές ανθρώπους να λένε όλα αυτά που μας λέτε είναι παλιά έθιμα, όλα αυτά που ακούμε είναι μια αρχαιολογία. Ποιον μπορεί να αφορούν όλα αυτά σήμερα? Πολλές θα μπορούσαν να είναι οι απαντήσεις. Εγώ, σε θέση απάντησης, θα σας πω μια μικρή ιστορία. Και έτσι θα ολοκληρώσω και την παρουσίασή μου. Πριν από 10 χρόνια περίπου, μια φίλη μου από την Κομοτηνή μου είπε ότι μια καθηγήτρια από το Πανεπιστήμιο της Κομοτηνής, η κυρία Ελένη Μπολιάκη, είχε ακούσει για τους Αλεβίτες Μπεκτασίδες της Θράκης και ήθελε κάποιος να μας γνωρίσει. Χάρηκα, βέβαια. Της έστειλα μήνυμα για το πότε είναι το επόμενο άμεσο κουρμπάνι και είπα ότι με χαρά θα την περιμένουμε. Η Ελένη ήρθε εκείνη τη μέρα, γνωριστήκαμε και κάναμε μια μεγάλη συζήτηση. Η Ελένη είχε την ευκαιρία να μιλήσει με κόσμο, κάθισε στο τραπέζι μας, φάγαμε, ήπιαμε και περάσαμε μια ωραία μέρα μαζί. Φεύγοντας, μου είπε, Αϊσέ, όταν ερχόμουν εδώ σήμερα, νόμιζα ότι θα συναντούσα μια ομάδα πολύ ηλικιωμένων. Περίμενα να είμαι μαζί με γρίες και γέρους και να συζητάω για κάτι που σχεδόν πεθαίνει. Σήμερα όμως, συνάντησα περισσότερους νέους από ό,τι περίμενα. Νεαρές γυναίκες, νέοι άνδρες, παιδιά. Είδα κάτι ζωντανό. Έτσι, ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Gerçekten çok etkileyici bir konuşmaydı. Çok çok teşekkür ederim konuşma için, verdiğiniz bilgiler için ayrıca. So now the next Vangelis, my accomplice. Thanks,
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. So Yorgos addressed the fascinating history of the presence of Bektaşis Alevis, mainly Bektaşis, in Greece and their shrinking during the last 100 years. As I showed us before, today the number of the Bektaşis Alevis in Greece, in Thrace, are about 3,000, 3,500 people, around 10 villages. So for decades, the main activity of the people of the community was livestock farming, while from the 80s and on, due to the growing financial difficulties, a considerable number of men began to leave the villages to work as sailors and as specialized workers in different towns and cities in Greece, many of them as specialized quarry workers. During the second decade of the 2000s, the number of community members that migrated for work in Greece and abroad increased significantly, including many women and young males and females, many of them working periodically in Europe. However, notwithstanding their weak numbers and despite the migration dynamics, the Bektaşis Alevis of Thrace have managed not only to continue and to keep almost unchanged their rituals and tradition, but also during the last 20 years to ride the tide of what in academic literature is named as the Alevi revival. One of the peculiarities of the Alevi Bektashi community in Thrace is that they are a rather rare hybrid, since, as we will see further, their traditions are a living blending of Alevism and Bektashism, which means also the Çelebi and Babagan rituals and practices. While this ongoing revival is happening within a very specific context, it is nevertheless a dynamic of deep transformation of the meaning that Bektaşis Alevis in Thrace give to their religious tradition and dogmas, as well as to their identity. So, as Ayşe has beautifully explained, while the communal life is still centered in the traditional cyclic time through the yearly fests and rites, the community is well grounded in the modern, more linear time, where transformation is the dominant dynamic. The significant presence and involvement of the younger generations, as Ayşe highlighted, are the major signs of this new era of Bektaşism Alevism in Thrace. One of the first things that struck me from the beginning of my field research was the very strong sense amongst the members of the community of the age of above 35-40 that Alevism Bektaşism is a religion and a roadway, a yol, that makes its adherents best people for themselves, the community, and the society at large. This objective, solid conviction that Alevism Bektaşism is tangibly driving its adherents towards becoming better human beings was expressed in various ways through the interviews and was mainly the answer to the question, what is Alevism Bektaşism for you? So we have some answers here. So it is a road, yol, and it is the road to become better people and to live with love. It is a religion of love that leads us to become better people every day. It is an everyday road to progress towards the good, towards being a good man. So the above-mentioned comments are only two of the dozens of comments emerging from the interviewees, all of them highlighting the dynamic of mainly the individual but also the communal progress as the basis of Alevism Bektaşism. Through the interviews, it has also emerged that while the older generations, those above 55-60, are clearly more inclined to use the term religion, the younger ones tend to use more the term yol, road. This observation was the first hint that there are significant different perceptions of what Alevism Bektaşism means amongst different generations within the community. But we will develop these differences a bit further. So religion or yol, for the interviewees, Alevism Bektaşism has a very distinguished inner dynamic of shaping one's attitude and according to the moral codes of Alevism Bektaşism. In that sense, we observed the presence of an institutional frame, the Ocak hearth system, the gem and its structure, as well as a systematic praxis that shapes individual and social behaviors according to the moral codes of the religion. The prevalence of such a dynamic perception of Alevism Bektaşism can be seen through the lens of what Nancy Ammerman named as a lived religion, meaning a living daily praxis according to religious codes and structures. So this lived religion is inherent to the way the community has managed not only to preserve its beliefs and traditions, but also to maintain their essence amongst its individual members. For example, the aspiration to become better men, insani kamil. As we will see later, this living religious praxis tends to be transformed into a cultural identity through the different generations of the members of the community. As I explained, the community regularly comes together for fests and religious-centered events and practices, and this makes the Alevis Bektaşis in Thrace one of the Alevi Bektaşi communities all over the world with a higher degree of systematic praxis. The Alevis Bektaşis of Thrace live their religion in a very vivid way, and their daily lives are permitted with Alevi Bektaşi moral praxis, behaviors, and ultimately culture. One striking example of how deep this praxis is can be seen in the period of Muharram, when the Alevis Bektaşis in Thrace fast and they do not eat meat or eggs. Not even green plant collected at that period in order to that life will not be taken. It has been observed that even small children refuse to eat meat and eggs despite the efforts of the parents. So we have parents trying to give to their children eggs and meat, and the children refuse. So to the question, what does it mean for you to be an Alevi Bektaşi? The answers seem to be even more revealing of the essence that the interviewees give to Alevi Bektaşism as a moral, individual, and communal compass. Some of them are here. It's the way to be human, that is always and wherever you go to be honest. We follow the footsteps of Muhammad and Ali. Do what you do with your heart. We don't look at men and women. We are all souls, Janlar. We are all brothers. We must all know each other. That is why we must all go to the gem together. And I pass you the rest of the comments. So in addition to the perception that being an Alevi Bektaşi means for them to try to become better men, a very significant number of interviewees highlighted the equalitarian nature of Alevism Bektaşis between men and women. For the members of the community, equality between men and women, as well as the fact that one should look and behave towards the opposite sex with a brotherly gaze, are very important. This could be explained partly through the objective importance of sex, or rather gender, equality within Alevi Bektaşi, religious frame and praxis, and partly from the fact that the Alevi Bektashi community in Thrace is a minority within the Sunni majority of the Muslim minority in Thrace. Highlighting the gender equality has emerged during the last 30 years as one of the major demarcations of the community towards the Sunni majority. The community has inherited a very solid institutional structure that provides the overall frame within which the religious praxis is observed. Now, the basis of the institutional structures is the ojak, the hearth, that members of the community adamantly reminded me many times that ojak comes from the place where we cook, it's a sort of kitchen, and symbolically it means that it cooks people, so that it makes people better. This the ojak, the hearth system, is undoubtedly a Kizilbash and Alevi structure. This seems to be the traditional structure of the community based on large family lineages. As I mentioned before, we have these villages. In every village there is one ojak, or in some villages with bigger number of people, you have two ojaks, two hearths. So according to oral history, unfortunately it was not possible to me to conduct research in archives. All memories point towards the fact that the spiritual head of each ojak, the murshid of the day, has always been chosen by the members and on the basis of merit and selection according to the Babaan system, and not on lineage from father to son according to the Jelebi system. The organizational head of each ojak is the himat. Now, the interesting thing here is that according to interviewees, there were also cases of Chelebi system where the delik was transmitted from father to son, but that was not possible to be confirmed by other interviewees. Now, the murshid choose their head, who is called the Bashtede, while there is no transmission based on lineage for the post in the gem. We heard Aisha before referring to the religious liturgy of the gem and certain positions. Now, however, we can already spot one of the many pieces of the fascinating richness of the Alevi Bektashi community in Thrace. While the transmission is based on the Babaan system, the murshid has to visit every 2-3 years the Haji Bektash headquarters in order to take the confirmation, the Ijazet Nameh, and have the ceremony of Touch Okutmak. And by doing so, he becomes holy through the Chelebi system. Now, twice a year, in April and September, there is a special gem amongst the murshid in the Sayyid Ali Sultan Tekesi, where the Bashtede gives his confirmation to all the murshid, and after this ceremony, the murshid can go back to their own ojak and gem. According to the interviewees, this legitimation from Haji Bektash Center makes the murshid a spiritual member of the Ehli Beit family. It was not possible to clarify when the existence of this dual system emerged, but based on Riza Yildirim's work, an hypothesis could be formulated. As Yildirim argues that within the widest frame of what can be named Balkan Alevi Bektashis, communities such as the Alevi Bektashi community in Thrace are the remnants of the villagers who remained in the spiritual sphere of influence of Bektashi dervish lodges. It is understood, writes Yildirim, that these communities, which had shaped their religious organization based on the dervish lodges in the region until the closure of the dervish lodges in 1826, were left without a head after the closure of the dervish lodges. They solved this problem with the dedes they chose from amongst themselves and have managed to survive to this day. Hence, we could suggest that after the closure of the Sayyid Ali Sultan Tekesi, the village population, Kizilbash and Alevi in the structure, that were attached to the lodge, started this dual system by following a Babaan line of transmission, while spiritually they were linked to the Bektashi order through the reinvented Chelebi transmission. Hence, we can argue that the Alevi Bektashi community in Thrace is Kizilbash Alevi in social structure and religiosity, while it is spiritually Bektashi. Regarding the legal representation of the community, Aisha mentioned all we have to know. I have nothing more to say. So, Aisha mentioned about the Musahiplik. I just want to give some testimonies to explain that the Musahiplik, as you can see, the Musahiplik is actually a spiritual brotherhood companionship, very distinctive of the Kizilbash Alevi tradition, and is implemented systematically by members of the community. It is indeed the social basis of the community, since it promotes a strong solidarity within the community, and it is also its religious basis, since a person without a musahib cannot hold a post in the gem. The musahibli is systematically performed between two married couples. In general, it seems that the members of the community tend to choose their musahib from the same ojak, but this is not the rule, since there are cases where musahibli can be couples from different ojaks. So throughout the interviews, it has become evident that the members of the community are very adamant in keeping this tradition, and that the institution of the Musahiplik has a very strong significance in their lives. The Musahiplik creates stronger ties than the family ties and has a direct impact on the descendants as the Musahib, since their children are considered to be family and hence they cannot marry. So we can argue here that the Musahiplik tends to be a stronger attachment to the community than the Ojak, and in that sense the Musahiplik seems to be the cornerstone of the community's social cohesion. Then we have the Düşkünlük, the fact that someone can be out, can be ostracized, can fall if he makes a mistake. Now the community strictly applies the rules of Düşkünlük, meaning the shunning of a person or persons who have considered to have committed a grievance. In the beginning of every gem, the Murshid asks if all the participants are together, birlikte, birlikte, birlikteis, and if there is any grievance, the persons implicated cannot participate in the gem until they have reconciled. According to the interviewees, there have been some cases of shunning during the last years. I mean, and even before it always happened. So again, the rules of the Düşkünlük have emerged also as a very strong factor of social cohesion. So the religious practice, Aisha talked about it, I have nothing more to add. The gem has the 12 posts and that we all know. So we have, let's go to the more, no, yes. So now through oral testimonies, we have observed two different dynamics. So the first is linked to the way the community distinguishes its religious self-identification, and the second is linked to the way different members of the community apprehend the habitus of their religious practice. Now, according to the interviewees, the first name by which the community they identified themselves used to be Kizilbash and Bektashi. Oral memory suggests that these two terms were widely used until the 70s. However, unfortunately, it was not possible to conduct thorough historical research, so I cannot say clearly since when these terms were used. Members of the community suggest that the term Kizilbash was widely used by the Sunni majority in the region and was rather pejorative. However, many members of the community were using the same term to identify themselves. Then, according to oral memory again, in the late 70s, but mainly during the 90s, the community started to use the term Alevi Bektashi. Many of the informers suggest that the use of the term Alevi Bektashi started because of two different undercurrents. The first was that after the 70s and during the 80s, at the time many members of the community immigrated in Turkey or started to work in Turkey, where they came into close contact with Turkish Alevis and communities there, and felt that they belong to a wider religious community, the Alevis, and that this belonging could give them a higher legitimacy and a stronger sense of security towards the Sunni majority in the area. Sorry. During this period, we can also find the first self-awareness amongst the members of the community of the wider Alevi culture. The second undercurrent came a bit later, mainly during the 90s, and after the lifting of the restriction of the Greek state to the mountainous populations of Thrace, when the community started to feel more self-secure and ready to publicly declare that they are Alevis Bektashis towards the Sunni majority. During the first decade of the 2000s, the community even more enhanced its public self-identification as Alevis Bektaşis and started to erect Cem evleri in the villages, while in the previous period they used to organize the Cem in private houses. Now, the second dynamic is rather sociological than religious, in the sense that we can observe an undercurrent through which the living religion tends to become a living culture, and religious identity tends to become a cultural identity, and tradition to be kept alive. This has become clear from the various interviews where different generations of the Alevi Bektashi community give different answers to what means to be an Alevi Bektashi. So you can see a rather older man says Alevi Bektaşism is our religion. It was the religion of our forefathers, and it is our religion too. A 42-year-old man, younger generation, told me Alevi Bektaşism is our culture, and we belong to this culture, and we do all we can to continue it. And a 22-year-old woman told me Alevi Bektaşism is our tradition, and we need to keep this tradition alive. So through the interviews and through the observations on the field, we have come to believe that while for the older generations, those roughly above 50, 55, Alevi Bektaşism is a religion, for the younger generations, those between 55 and 30, Alevi Bektaşism has become a culture, and for the even younger, those below 30, it is a tradition. Through these differences, we can observe that for the younger generations, Alevi Bektaşism has become a cultural identity that needs to be preserved, and that is felt as a major identity marker, while for the older generations, it is a religion that has to live as such. The migration that started after the 80s, together with the overall modernization of the Thracian society and the growing interactions between an increasing number of community members, especially after the 90s, of the villages with other people of the region, were the main factors that initiated this transformation and created the feeling that Alevi Bektaşism is also a cultural identity and tradition as it is a religion. In that sense, as academic literature and research has shown in the cases of Alevis in Turkey, who migrated to cities, and Alevis who migrated to Europe, we can spot traces of an Alevi revival amongst the Alevi Bektashi community in Thrace. Now, younger generations, while being adamant to keep Alevi Bektaşism alive, understand Alevi Bektaşism in rather desacralized terms and actively defend its continuation as a cultural identity and tradition. What has emerged through various interviews is that the younger generations are eager to continue the religious practice of their elders, but without the same piety that characterizes the older generations. However, they are very active in both the structure of the rituals of the Cem and the organization of the various fasts through the year, but they also keep the tradition of Musahiplik and Ikrar. Almost half of the members of the community that occupy a post in the Cem are below 45 years old, while the community declares that the last years, after a pause during the pandemic, the Ikrar and Musahiplik ceremonies are again on the rise. A noteworthy information that results from the younger generations is also that the younger generations cultivate their knowledge and literacy on Alevi Bektaşism through readings and specialized videos. Through the interviews, it has emerged that those members from the younger generations are sometimes more knowledgeable comparing to the parents and grandparents. For these members, it has become crucial not only to keep the rituals alive, but also to reinstate some parts of the original rituals that that have changed during the last years. Oh, I can't believe it. I have a problem with my computer. This is the day. My battery is off. I'm sorry. Just give me. I'm sorry. Just give me one moment. I'm really sure about that. Με συγχωρείτε. Okay, okay. Okay, I have it. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm terribly sorry about that. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. It's okay. Thank you. So I'm sorry. So let's. What is noteworthy through the interviews with the younger generation is also the fact that, as I said, younger generations are very keen to know more and to educate themselves as Alevis, Bektaşis. So it is impossible to give any precise numbers, but field observation points towards the fact that, as Ayşe already highlighted, there is a very big number of young Alevi Bektaşis actively working and participating in the organization of the various fests, and this independently of having taken the Ikrar or not. Younger generations are engaged also with Alevis Bektaşism, and despite the fact that many of them live and work outside the villages, but they still come during the weekends or whenever they can. Another very important practice that we observe in this community is how important the Ikrar is, how important it is the initiation to become an Alevi. This tradition is kept very authentically, and there are strict rules because, in opposition to what happens many times in Turkey or in Germany, only people who have given the Ikrar, who had been initiated, can enter the gem. No one else. So once again, we see that the traditions are kept alive. Let's come to the conclusion. Is that the gradual metamorphosis of the self-identification and self-awareness of the Alevi Bektashi community in Greece have operated in the background of a very regular religious praxis and within the social and religious bonds of the Ocak structure, the Ikrar and the Musahiplik. The regularity of the ceremonies and the fests, as well as the Ikrar and the Musahiplik, seem to have guaranteed the transmission of both the traditional characteristics and the essence of Alevis Bektaşism, and that they continue to do so. In that sense, and according to UNESCO's definitions, we can argue that Alevis Bektaşism in Greece, in Thrace, in addition of being a lived religion, is also a cultural heritage that has to be protected, and the best way to protect it is through the official recognition of Alevis Bektaşism as an independent religion. This recognition will not only preserve and enhance the ongoing religious and cultural structures and practices of the Alevi Bektashi community in Thrace, but it will also give a new frame within which the community will be able to face the challenges of the ongoing sociological changes and mainly the gradual migration of its younger generations to the cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we are actually before the last speaker. I would like to collect some questions, but please be very specific as we are really over time, and I'm sure people are hungry and need to take some rest. Please be as specific as possible while the new presentation is getting ready. Questions, comments, suggestions? No? No. I'll ask a question if you don't ask. So, comment? Okay, go.
Take the mic.
Yeah. Oh, here, it's mine.
So, I would like to thank you very much for your panel, and just to what Ayşe presented about the legal personality of the community is very important because να μιλήσω ελληνικά, ίσως, ναι. Και μετά θα τα πω. Ωραία. Ήθελα να σε ρωτήσω λίγο σύντομα για την νομική προσωπικότητα, πόσο σημασία έχει. Η νομική προσωπικότητα των Αλεβί Μπεκτασί αμέσως θα δημιουργούσε ένα ένομο αποτέλεσμα, όπως λέμε, δηλαδή θα είχε αμέσως το συγκεκριμένο ότι θα μπορούσε ο ιερούργος, ο κληρικός που είπες, να έχει πράξεις οι οποίες θα έχουν ένομο αποτέλεσμα. Δηλαδή θα πηγαίνει στο ληξιαρχείο ένας γάμος, χωρίς να περνάει από τη σουνίτικη κοινότητα. Έτσι, αυτό είναι πολύ σημαντικό. Αυτό θέλω να το ξαναπώ λίγο, να το τονίσω. Έχει μεγάλη σημασία πώς θα βγει ένα διαζύγιο. Έχει μεγάλη σημασία πώς θα γίνει η κληρονομική διαδοχή.
Ναι.
Έτσι, όλα αυτά έχουν τεράστια σημασία και από την πλευρά μου τώρα την ερευνητική είναι ότι αυτά δεν έχουν μελετηθεί καθόλου οι πρακτικές μέσα στην κοινότητα. Τι κάνετε τόσο καιρό προσπαθώντας να παρακάμψετε ενδεχομένως ή να περάσετε μέσα από τη μουφτία για να πάρετε τα χαρτιά τα αντίστοιχα. Και ένα δεύτερο κομμάτι είναι αυτό που λέμε το interface, δηλαδή η σχέση με τον περίγυρο ως προς το ελληνικό κράτος για να καταλήξει στο ληξιαρχείο, είναι εσωτερικά πώς γίνονται οι διευθετήσεις όταν υπάρχουν διαφορές μέσα στην κοινότητα και ξέρω ότι υπάρχει ένα όργανο το οποίο λύνει τις διαφορές μέσα στο χωριό για να μην φτάσετε κάπου σε ένα δικαστήριο ενδεχομένως ή κάτι άλλο. Είτε είναι ηθικού χαρακτήρα συμπεριφοράς, είτε είναι λίγο και πιο νομικού, ίσως και ποινικού χαρακτήρα, ελαφριά βέβαια. Αυτό πώς λειτουργεί επίσης, ίσως να το πούμε και αργότερα, να μην χάσουμε.
Okay, yeah. You wanna? Yeah.
Στίνα, είσαι, θέλω να ρωτήσω. Με ενδιαφέρει πολύ η τοποθέτησή σου ως προς τις γυναίκες. Βλέπαμε ότι στην προηγούμενη γενιά όλες οι γυναίκες του ορεινού χώρου είχαν τόσο πολύ κομφορμιτέ, είχαν αποκτήσει μια τέτοια, με τέτοια προσπάθεια να μην κινούν σε αντίθεση με τον ομό Ξάνθης. Εδώ πέρα όλες ήταν ντυμένες με το φερετζέ, μαυροντυμένες. Μέχρι ποια ηλικία αυτό συμβαίνει? Οι νέες γυναίκες έχουν τέτοιες τάσεις ομογενοποίησης, ας πούμε, με την κυρίαρχη αντίληψη για τη μουσουλμάνα γυναίκα?
Türkçe cevap vereceğim. Okay.
Δύο πράγματα πολύ σύντομα. Το πρώτο, όταν είχα πάει πρώτη φορά στα Χίλια, όταν είχε περάσει κάπως στα χέρια των Σουνιτών, ρώτησα γιατί Χίλια, αφού το υψόμετρο είναι διαφορετικό. Και μου είπαν ότι προφανώς είναι από το κύριο Ζετλίνης, μάλιστα τότε, είναι από το προφήτη της Ηλίας, στον οποίο αναφερθήκατε προηγουμένως. Το όνομα Χίλια προέρχεται από το Ηλίας. Το δεύτερο, δεν ξέρω αν κανείς από εσάς που συχνάζετε και στις περιοχές έχει ασχοληθεί με τον αρχικό προορισμό του τεμένους Βαγιαζή, του μεγάλου τεμένους του Δημοτήχου, το οποίο, αν προβληματίσει και κάποιος, αν δεν ήταν ο αρχικός προορισμός, τέμενος. Αυτό το λέω πριν από όλα γιατί όταν είχα πρωτοπάει, όταν άρχισα να δουλεύω εκεί το 1975, σωζόταν ακόμη μια τοιχογραφία πάνω από την κεντρική πύλη εσωτερικά, στο εσωτερικό του τεμένους, μια τοιχογραφία στην οποία υπήρχαν φιγούρες ανθρώπινες. Κάτι που είναι ασυνήθιστο για τα τέμενος και ήταν τα πρώτα χρόνια που κυριαρχεί το σουνίτικο δόγμα και αφιερώθηκε στο Βαγιαζή, το ονομάστηκε το Βαγιαζή που ήταν γνωστό φιλικά προσκύμενος με Μερακλής, Γλεντζές κτλ. Δεν ξέρω αν αυτό θέλω να αναφέρω. Και κτίζεται το τζαμί τα πρώτα χρόνια μετά τους εμφύλιους πολέμους ανάμεσα στα παιδιά του Βαγιαζή, γύρω στα τέλη της δεύτερης δεκαετίας του 15ου αιώνα. Τώρα ο Σελίμ, αυτός, ο διάδοχος του Βαγιαζή, δεν ξέρω αν είναι αυτός που πολέμησε με τον Ισμαήλ από την Περσία, τότε που οι Μπεκτασίδες, ενώ όλοι έλεγαν θα περίμεναν να συνταχθούν με τον Σιήτη Ισμαήλ, συντάχθηκαν με τον Σουνίτη, με τον Σελίμ, ο οποίος είχε ασπαστεί το Σουνίτικο δόγμα. Είναι μια άλλη ιστορία.
Λοιπόν, kendimi en iyi Türkçe'de ifade ettiğim için Türkçe'ye geçiyorum. Kusura bakmayın, yapacak bir şey yok. En son son sorudan başlayarak cevaplamaya çalışacağım. Profiti İlya'ya benzetti sanırım. Seçeğin Hilya, İlya yani kelimelerin birbirine benzerliğinden yola çıkarak profiti hayatımda ilk defa duydum bunu. Belki siz yaş olarak benden büyüksünüz, duymuş olabilirsiniz ama gerçekten bunu hayatımda ilk defa duydum. Şimdi bizim inandığımız yani Yunanistan'da yaşayan bizlerin yazılı hiçbir kaynağımız yok. Bizim bildiğimiz her şey yaşlılarımızdan, atalarımızdan duyduğumuz sözlü kaynaklar. Bizim inancımıza göre yani bize öğretildiğine göre bizim bildiğimiz şey ilk kez o güreşler Arakçılar diye bir bölgede yapılıyordu. Burada bahsetmiştim. Orası şu an Bulgaristan, Yunanistan tam sınır bölgesinde. Yani yüzyıllardır orada yapılmış. Yunanistan'la Bulgaristan sınırları belirlendikten sonra bugüne şimdi Hilya biz yani Türkçe söylerken seçek biz bir de mesela Türkçe konuşanlar onu seçilmişe benzetmiş. Şimdi böyle bir şey var. Türkçe evet. O zaman sıraya mı? Ben aldım başımı gittim. Sorry.
So it was so Ayşe was mentioning that these are actually yeah. No, I wasn't listening to translate. I was actually trying to learn. Yok. Şimdi abi ilk başta anladığımı söyleyeyim. So Ayşe was mentioning that this is the first time she learned. Okay, what's going on? Okay, so this was the first time actually she used this kind of comparison between Ilya and Elia. Because she says that it's not their tradition is not a written tradition, it's basically an oral tradition. So from based on what they heard from their ancestors, there is no, it's not one of the things that she actually heard from their ancestors. Okay, so where they have performed Seçe is actually on the border of Bulgaria and Greece. So this is why they are, this is the reason why they are actually descending to a lower altitude place. And this is the main reason. Okay, so it's actually more recent change based on what she said. After the fixing of the border between Bulgaria and Greece, this place became the where they perform. Okay. So, she's talking how different groups actually strategize on this, etymological games. Basically, she says, they are using different kinds of, for example, from their side, it sounds more like to be chosen, seçilmek, whereas on the other side, the term resembles to Prophet Ilya. Yeah. More questions? So yavaş. Okay.
Hala bile mesela özel günlerde çok yaşlılarımız o özel günün anlamına olarak giyebiliyor yani. Giyiyor. Hepsi çıkarmadı feraceleri. Yani hala kadınlar kullanıyor bunu. Çok yaşlılarımız ama gençlerde yok artık.
Yeah, so the older ones actually, some older women uses ferace for their very special days, so they can choose that. But it's a personal thing, and it's mostly with the older generation.
Ama şimdi saçı görünmüş, görünmemiş. Yani Bektaşi Sufizmi böyle detaylarla ilgilenmiyor.
Whether it shows hair or not, this is not within the domain of Bektaşi Sufism. So we don't really care whether it shows the hair on it.
Bizim atalarımız Bektaşiler Feraceleri de, bezleri de başkaları için takmışlar. Kendileri, kendi inanışları için değil. Yani başka bir şey
Oh, okay,
söylemek
so
istemiyorum.
our community wore the ferace for other people. It's not within, it doesn't come out of its own tradition. So it's more like to satisfy the expectations coming from outside, and it's not an inner tradition, if I understood it correctly.
Artık buna gerek yok yani.
Okay.
Α, η πολύ κομπλικέ είναι η ερώτηση. Ναι. Όλοι μαζί θα δούμε πώς θα γίνει μετά από εδώ τα πράγματα. Μέχρι τώρα, ό,τι και να είναι, ήρθε. Με δυσκολίες βέβαια. Bazı şeyler hoşumuza gitti. Devam et Zeynep.
Devam mı? Tamam.
Γιατί
Rahat etmiyorum.
yani bu gerek boşanmalar olsun, yani toplumu ilgilendiren her aşamada tamamen sünni inanç gibi yapmamızı beklediler. Yaptık mı? Yapmadık. Kendi içimize hallettik meseleyi.
Okay, so all the issues that concern the civil law, civil matters like divorce and other, I assume other issues as well, they were expected. Other, I guess, do you refer to here to Sunni communities? Here, when you, or the Greeks? Do you want to clarify, or do you want to leave it?
Bizim için ikisi de yabancı.
Okay, for us, both of them are distant foreigners. So both the Greeks and the Sunni population are actually expected them to, you know, fit within the Sunni tradition, to act according to that. Expected Bektaşis to that. But what we did, perhaps outwardly they didn't do, you know, much, but internally they took care of their own matters at hand, and they basically run these matters, solve these matters according to their own tradition.
Yani Bektaşiler pratik zekaya sahip bir insan diye düşünüyorum. Kendi aralarında maalesef hallettiler şimdiye kadar. Önemli olan bundan sonra ne yapacağımız.
So they had to be somewhat creative, and she says we are basically, you know, creative, kind of street smart when it comes to these matters. And so far, we managed to, you know, do matters in a way that we didn't kind of betray our own tradition. We could sustain it, but also seen from outside that we are conforming to their expectations.
Seyyid Ali Sultan dergahında ikrarlı bir canın boşanması öyle kolay bir şey değil yani, onu da söyleyeyim. Yani bütün toplumdan bir şekilde, hayır toplum kabul eder şey değil ama yani sonra müsahiplik işi karışıyor. Onundan müsahip, o onun rehberi. Yani çok tercih etmiyoruz.
So basically divorce is especially for the initiated ones that has gone through the initiation in Bektaşis who has been initiated and have musahip, so you know, birthday brothers, and so they basically the integral part of the system. It's very difficult to have actually divorce. This is not a preferred act by the community because it really complicates things, because everybody is connected to everyone through these basically brotherhood and you know, sanctuous relationships. Okay, I think we really need to finish this part. We'll continue and. Okay. Yeah, now the very last speaker that is going to just... Yeah, go ahead.
Since we are all tired and the time has passed, I will just show you a program that has started some years ago, but coincide also in some way with our presentation, because all this tangible and intangible cultural testimony that exists in the region and is of course about the Bektashis, but also about Islam and Christianity, and also the Jewish traces that remain in Eastern Macedonia and Western Thrace. We have tried through a European program that was sponsored and is all now at the end, to mark them and to find a technological instrument how to show all this to the museums and the schools of the future without any judgment, by collecting cultural and intangible also cultural heritage. And we really thank the communities, all the communities, that they accepted us. We went for a long time, we make interviews, and we finally, I will show you, you can see the homepage is in English and also in Turkish and also in Greek, but I will show you the short video that is for the Rousasteke, and of course we can make, someone can make everything that he wants, and this can be touched by the visitors. And this is the nice thing. And from children from 2 years old until old men and ladies until, I don't know, more than 80s. This was presented last week here in Mocha, because Mocha was a partner too. This is the sacred tree at Rousas Tekes. We have also 360 photos that the visitor can see, small texts relating to every, let's say, monument. A lady singing a Pomak song in Pomak language, and many, many photos from the Kurbans in the area and the Hilia also. And there we had the opportunity also to find old photos from the 90s by a photographer, Fani Sari. So she offered to us, so we compared the past with the present. And we have also for Hilia fighting, and here are the DVDs, the 3D, that someone can play with the 3D. So if you go within the page, you can see much more, let's say, examples with Jewish also, objects and thematic eras, Muslims and Christians. Thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.